Is it Brendan?
What would it be? Let me think. I'm not sure. I'll have to think about that one. Think about it deeply.
So you're not going to draw me in it, and you have a look at all the facts, you'll see I've no comment to make.
Maybe your name is a wheeler and dealer. There's not been much wheeling and dealing,
No, I'm not a wheeler and dealer. No, that's off.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know that.
Don't say that. I'm a fucking football manager.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
And a very good morning to you. Welcome along this Thursday morning, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. We awake to the news that Ireland are playing football tonight against Switzerland. McCarthy's in charge, but the whole country's talking about Roy Keane. There you go. Eoin, good morning to you.
Very good morning to you.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. Last night was a very interesting night, one of the biggest nights in off-the-ball history.
Yeah, it went very well by all accounts.
Roy Keane and Gary Neville in the Borgosh Energy Theatre with our good friends at Cadbury's.
How was it?
It was sensational. How was it? That's a good question. How do you characterise an evening like that? I think it was sensational. It was like everybody who went there got the thing that they wanted. And that was the full range.
Nathan Murphy looking longingly into Roy Keane's eyes.
I don't know if it was longingly, more terror at stages.
I actually heard that Roy Keane was looking at Nathan in a state of terror at one point late in the night.
Yeah, what happened?
Over the quiz, there was some question about what fixture would you pick to go to in the Premier League, and Nathan was like, obviously Manchester City, Liverpool, and Roy was like, no, United, Liverpool. And Nathan was just staring him in the eyes, and Roy was like, did I get the wrong answer there? So he obviously got one up on Roy Keane in that situation.
Yeah, so look, we'll obviously be playing you out the vast majority of everything that happened at the Borgosh Energy Theatre on tonight's show and on tomorrow night's show as well. Some stories have made the papers this morning, as I said. So Keane was unbelievably charming and Gary Neville was funny, and they sparked off each other like old teammates who were friends at one stage should do, and they seemed to be completely equals in terms of how the conversation was going. But then he also did get into great detail about the breakdown of the relationship with Alex Ferguson, the breakdown of the relationship with some of the Ireland players, Harry Arter, even Jason McAteer got a subtle dig at one point.
That was the thing. The lads in the office were saying that was a joke. In the newspapers, it looked like it was pretty straightforward dig.
Yeah.
Kind of not too much of a joke.
So I think that's the whole point, right? A lot of the stuff is said with the intention of it being a joke that's meant to land.
And then everybody's too afraid because it's Roy Keane to laugh.
I think, well, so if you're going to hear the audio across the day, there's like lots of hooping and hollering and laughing as people go on. It was Roy Keane's a very complicated character, and I think all of that was on display last night, which is like I think exactly what people wanted to see. And then obviously he's gone too far with a couple of things that he said, and it's like, it's gone too far by Johnny Walters. It hasn't gone too far by Ferguson, I think. There's an interesting conversation to be had about the stuff that he says about Ferguson, but
that's the stuff that's not getting picked up in the papers today, naturally, because he has spoken about Ferguson in the past.
Oh, I think that's going to come. I think that they were just getting the box office stuff, the stuff that's going to get the most clicks out first. The Ferguson stuff will absolutely be making news in the next 12 hours.
Do you want to tell me what the news is? Do you want to tell us at home what the news was?
Oh, he says that they haven't spoken in 15 years. Or whenever it was. And people are having different reactions to that.
It's kind of shocking that they haven't.
I mean, it's not that shocking, really, right, when you consider the people involved, is it?
No, exactly. That's what I'm asking. It's it is. I'm not surprised that Roy Keane has decided to not speak to somebody for a decade and a half, for sure. But no, I'm looking forward to hearing it. I'm looking forward to in the state of FOMO that I've got right now. I'm looking forward to going back and looking through it all. As you say, it's on a lot of the back pages when it comes to the Irish angle.
Yeah. And then obviously it's overshadowing the game tonight.
Yeah, completely. Ireland against Switzerland tonight. We're going to have Gary Breen on a little bit later on. There could be protests, of course, at the game tonight. It's been spoken about. Mick McCarthy was asked about the possibility of protests yet again. Of course, our first home game since the tennis ball protest. So I guess he was asked, should the fans protest? And he was like, perhaps not. The thing since the last home game is that you've also got more revelations about the FAI. If you were in the mood to throw a tennis ball onto the pitch of the Aviva Stadium a couple of months ago, that desire perhaps hasn't gone away too much over the last couple of months. So it's natural that he was asked about it in the press conference. He said ideally people wouldn't throw balls onto the pitch, but it had a pretty good effect on Ireland last time. Conor Hourhan banged that one into the back of the net. So he says if it has the same effect, then go ahead and do it. I'm not sure if there is a plan for a protest. Like, let's not forget that the last time there was a protest, we were talking about it before the game, and they were like, that's not going to happen. They're going to get the tennis balls taken off them going into the stadium.
It's easy enough to smuggle a tennis ball in. I hadn't heard anything about this one, so let's wait and see. That game's live, obviously, on the Off the Ball show on News Talk tonight. From 7, David Myler, another former footballer under Roy Keane, will be alongside Nathan Murphy in the commentary box for that one. Let's have a look at a snippet of last night's Off the Ball Roadshow at the Bord Gáis Energy Theatre with thanks to Cadbury. The full show with Roy Keane and Gary Neville will air tonight. Have a look at Roy on his time with Ireland.
Anytime I've even lost my job or I've left a job, I've never been that upset. I've just thought, well, listen, sometimes you might be a bit angry, upset by it if you think you've been badly treated. Martin and myself with the Irish job, I loved every minute of it. And again, instead of kind of going, I think we probably deserve, I do think we deserved another crack off it, but we had some brilliant years, and strange enough, people still said to me, sorry, it kind of didn't work out with Ireland, and I go, well, it did. I thought it was brilliant. I thought we had 2 proper campaigns, we qualified, okay, we got to a playoff, and I think if every Irish manager had done that, Irish football would be a decent place. Towards the end, when you're losing 1 or 2 players, and whatever about myself, I definitely, there's no doubt Martin was harshly treated. There's no doubt about that. But obviously when there's a lot of negativity, a lot of spin out there, and when we were missing the players we were, trust me, and I've watched Irish football since I was a kid, Ireland are going to hit a sticky patch because there's real lack of quality at the moment. Never mind if you're missing Seamus or Robbie Brady, 1 or 2 important players, you're thinking, we are up against it. So when we had that sticky patch, you're hoping that people will stick with you. But 9 times out of 10, people will panic and they will make a decision that you might think is unfair. But that, again, I kind of keep repeating myself, but that's life, that's the industry we're in. But the stuff we had with Ireland, and I still miss the Irish job, I loved it. I loved the buzz of the games, I thought the players. I love working with Martin. I think Martin, brilliant manager, a really good guy. With some great days. Jesus, I've been very fortunate in my career, but the 1 or 2 games you've mentioned there were up there with a lot of the highlights in my career, especially when it's your country. It was brilliant, the trips we had.
Yeah. So that was the charming aspect of the evening where... Hello. Hi, John, how are you?
Good.
Yeah, look, it was mad. It was all a bit mad, wasn't it? Like, it was compelling stuff.
It was funny, entertaining, enthralling, and at times very uncomfortable. And that's what a night should be about, shouldn't it?
It's like a night in the theatre.
That in the Bord Gáis Energy Theatre. I was utterly, mesmerised by the dripping charisma that Roy Keane has, and you can tell that he knows how to kind of entice a crowd, and by telling stories and talking about his career, like talking with Gary Neville about the treble, 1999, and what it was like in the tunnel with Vieira, that kind of thing. We're going to hear all this obviously later on Off the Ball on tomorrow night, but then it kind of took a turn, mainly around the discussion around the video before Keane left Old Trafford in November 2005. The criticism of a performance against Middlesbrough and how that all spiralled out of control, but given it was festering with Carlos Queiroz for a few months, and Roy talking about being down in Portugal and where he was staying and his family and that kind of thing. And
so just for context, for anybody who doesn't know the background to the story, Queiroz and him have had a row at some point. Queiroz has told him what to do, and then is it at that point that Ferguson says to Queiroz, do you have sex in the same position with your wife every night because you're making us play in the same position in training every week? That's the line, isn't it?
I don't know if that's the line, but that wasn't mentioned last night.
Right.
But there's like
that's definitely the line. That's the one that was like,
throwing him a bib, Roy not feeling really part of it, and then Gary Neville was saying to Roy in the conversation that whatever Roy said, that he would have sacked Roy Keane if he was. He asked Roy, "Would you have sacked Roy Keane?" And Roy obviously demurred and said that he wouldn't have. And then Roy, like, the body language completely changed, like from this really kind of warm, friendly, engaging chat in the audience to this kind of cold, stone-faced no.
To the presenters, Joe and Nathan.
To everybody. Den was hammering home the fact that they got the statement wrong, that he was there 12 and a half years and the statement said 11 and a half years. And I find it very, very sad that he revealed, and we always hear that the stories when books come out, and many books have come out, that they haven't spoken or they haven't picked up the phone, but he hasn't spoken to Ferguson for 14 years. And Ferguson had a very close brush in the last couple of years with illness. And he was asked by Nathan, do you think life's too short? Could you maybe, reached out? And he said that no, until I get an apology. So that was
him and David Gill.
Him and David Gill. And I'm kind of thinking to myself, I'm hearing a lot from Roy that we can all improve, we can all learn about things, but I'm also getting a huge sense of tremendous stubbornness about certain issues, about Saipan, which I think, we kind of had the rehash of how he felt about Saipan, about the fact that he was accused of feigning injury, that kind of thing. And we're getting that utter steel ability not to change his mind about certain things. I am fixed on these things. This is what I believe. I'm not going to change for anything. And it kind of didn't really be in sync with the charm that we saw at other parts of the night. And then you feel like this is going right to the edge, and then you bring it back with a joke. So it was goal for your stuff, lads. Being in the audience, see your mouth open at times, and you're kind of going, "Oh my God, is this actually happening?" There's comments about John Walters, which are out there that I'm not going to go into now. But you're kind of you are on the edge of your seat in good and bad ways, and I think that's why Roy Keane is box office. But to me, I've always felt, having observed him as a journalist or as a broadcaster for 20 years, there is a Jekyll and Hyde quality to him, and I saw that emanate at the Borgosh Energy Theatre last night. That one moment it's it's candy from a baby, and the next moment you're going, "Oh my God, this has turned now, and where is this conversation going?" And then you bring it back a bit. But they had a great fun at the end with the audience, and bringing the audience up and taking out hurleys and cricket bats and having a bit of crack. But I think it's just very sad, the Ferguson thing. I think it's a very sad state of affairs. There's that photo of Keane and Ferguson, I think, when they won the title, in the dressing room. Keane has got the shirt off and Ferguson's got the arm around him.
Now, there's obviously a pair of them in it, right? Because Roy obviously had a bereavement recently, and he clearly didn't get a phone call from Ferguson to say, "Oh look, I'm sorry that happened." So there's definitely two sides to that story, where you have, I would say, Ferguson tried to create Keane in his image and did a very good job of it, and now they're just exactly the same, looking at each other going, "No, you blink first. No, you blink first."
Yeah, well, Ferguson, I remember the John Snow interview when he quit. We talked about United was all about control, and Ferguson, I think that Gary Neville was correctly said, if Keane had been 27 or 28 when all this had happened, like with Cantona, the allowances would have been made because he was too valuable for the team.
Yeah,
I think when he's 34 years of age, I think there's always a reason, there's always a way, there's always a bust up, there's always a fissure. But generally, the real reason is they didn't feel like he was going to make it at United for that season at 34 years of age with the injuries he'd had. Yeah. He wasn't the Roy Keane of old. Therefore, you get some kind of conflagration in that.
And Keane pointed out that he didn't like the way that Brian Robson and Steve Bruce had been run out of the club at his stage as well.
All I'm hearing from Roy Keane, though, and this is pride. There's huge pride there, and the huge pride there around Saipan. And actually, well, another interesting thing he said was the thing about the training ground and the pitch and all that had been forgotten about, and they were going off the next day. But he never mentioned the fact that he gave the interviews that week to Paul Kimmage and Tom Humphreys. And that's what sparked the McCarthy meeting. You know, it didn't come out of nowhere that he just turned up with this newspaper.
Are we relitigating side hand on what is it, the 5th of September 2019? I'm happy to do it if everybody.
Nobody else.
If everybody out there wants us to do 2 hour special on Saipan for the rest of the day, we'll do it, right? I'm up for it.
Brilliantly entertaining, and you got to hand it to Roy for being brilliantly entertaining.
More good stuff coming your way, and we'll talk about obviously some of the stories in the papers in just a minute, because that's what's coming next for you. Gary Breen's going to join us at 8:05 this morning to talk about the Ireland-Switzerland game tonight. Promise we won't talk to him about Roy. We might talk to him about Roy. We might. We'll see. It's unlikely. Shot clock coming your way at 8:30 with Kieran Donaghy. More reaction to the latest news coming out of the Ireland camp at 9:05 ahead of the World Cup, which is not that far away now. When's our first game on?
First game is the Sunday 2 weeks. Sunday 2 weeks. So what date do you make that? The 22nd.
Oh, and what is your Japanese song? Is it big in Japan?
Yes, let's go with that.
Or is it turning Japanese?
I don't know. There's too many to pick from, John, quite frankly.
Turning Japanese. You know what turning Japanese is about?
No.
You don't know?
I have no idea, no.
Right.
So let's not go with that one.
Self-pleasuring song is about.
Right, okay, let's definitely go with that one.
Right, okay, let's bring in newspapers this morning. Things always take a turn here. You're such a filthy mind, Eoin Sheahan, filthy mind. Can't believe you brought all that up. The Irish Times, not their lead this morning, but they're talking about Cian O'Sullivan being vital to successful Dublin game plan. And this is the statistical analysis piece from Eamon Donoghue. Kerry's score from play in the 2019 final and Kerry's misses from play. He's saying that Cian O'Sullivan could actually play a crucial role in trying to close down the various attack lines that Kerry have in the forwards.
Yeah, he talks about last year's league game. It's interesting how the league keeps getting brought up, and we're all kind of reluctant to read too much into it, but they've actually had a fair old bearing in this rivalry, like in terms of what we've actually seen in the spring and how that translates into the summer, like 2016, that kind of came up a couple of times, and then it happened the last day as well. Like the last year's league game in 2018, Dublin hockeyed Kerry. They beat them by like 13 points or something like that, 12 points at least. I think Sean O'Shea got injured or something like that, but he talks about the role of Cian O'Sullivan that day, and really the more you read into it, the more you're like, Dublin will be absolutely bonkers to not start Cian O'Sullivan in this replay.
Yeah.
It just it allows...
Who are you dropping though? There's a consensus that somehow Michael Darmacaulay's going to be punished for playing well. I don't think that's a good idea. I think that I thought he was good.
He can be better off the bench though.
He was breaking even at least, but like give him 50 minutes in an 80-minute game as opposed to 30 minutes in an 80-minute game, and I think that those 50 minutes will be more telling. I think if you're Dublin, you're going to be telling yourself, we've got 15 men from the very get-go here. No one's getting sent off. All right, John? No bookings this time. And then you say, we've got 15 men, we're going to go for it. Not like, we're going to win it in the last 10 minutes. It's going to go all the way deep. It's like, let's kill these guys. Let's not give them an opportunity to get back in the game. Let's get 5 points up again and not have a man sent off.
Yeah, like Eamon Donoghue makes a very valid point as well, though, that if you have a sweeper in that defence, it also allows the defenders to take a few more risks, that they know that they have that comfort blanket. Perhaps Johnny Cooper doesn't hold on to David Clifford's arm and is aggressive in a cleaner way, and that will allow for a better quality of defending across the back line, which seems like a weird thing to say considering the quality of defending I thought was actually excellent from Dublin at times, particularly in their full back line outside of Cooper. So I don't know, I think that every way you look at this, no matter who gets dropped or what the implications of the person who gets dropped is, I think Cian O'Sullivan has to start. Dublin have to play a sweeper.
Sports Thursday, Ireland have a chance to gain crucial advantage. Manager knows even a draw will provide a platform to press for a top 2 spot. I don't think it will. I think that we're going to regret drawing, especially when we had a Swiss journalist in with us yesterday who was a little bit anxious about Switzerland's chances. I think if you go 3-0 up in a home game and you don't win that game, then there's a flakiness in the group that we need to somehow get into and remind them, yeah, you're flaky. We're going to beat you this time.
I definitely think that the way the narrative has gone this week, that you're looking at Ireland as a potential winner tonight for sure. 12 months ago, you're looking at that game and you're thinking, God, how do we not get a thumping at home to Switzerland? So the confidence has definitely changed. A couple of freak incidents have happened that have allowed us to get that confidence, namely Switzerland surrendering a 3-goal lead against Denmark. Also, Xherdan Shaqiri falling out with the manager and not really showing up for this international break, focusing on his club commitments. I think there's a lot of hope we can take from some of the stories that have done the rounds with Switzerland over the last 12 months, or certainly during this campaign. The back page of the Mirror this morning is Swiss crank. This is interesting because Mick McCarthy appears to have reacted to a story that basically was not true. If Jan thinks we're unpleasant now, just wait until tonight, says Mick. So this story came out yesterday that Jan Sommer said that Ireland are an unpleasant side. They play a very unpleasant style of football. The Swiss journalist we had in with us yesterday said that is just not true. That quote was completely misinterpreted. I think he meant tough, physical, not unpleasant. But Mick McCarthy has come out and said, I hope he sat in the dressing room afterwards and he's thinking it's more unpleasant. So he's hit right back at him. You've also got that story from last night, John and Ratzap pack not for Keane, and kick him out of Europe. Ince calls for a crackdown on clubs with racist fans. So this is in the aftermath of Romelu Lukaku getting targeted with monkey chants. The Inter Milan fans coming out saying, we're sorry you think that is racist. That it's a term of endearment, not a term of racism from Italian football fans, monkey chants. So all well and good, and all is rosy in the land of Italian football. The other story here, which is a huge story in the Premier League title race, is that Aymeric Laporte is out until Christmas. It looked very, very bad at the weekend when he went down against Brighton. It could have been a season-ending injury for him, but he is going to be out until after Christmas only, so he will be back before the end of the season. But you look at that and have the scales tipped. Is that the grain of rice that tips the scales in Liverpool's favour? I think it may be.
Which bit, sorry?
That Aymeric Laporte is out until after Christmas.
But so who's going to be their centre back?
Fernandinho came on for him last weekend.
To play centre back?
Yeah.
Maybe Fernandinho's like the new Mascherano and ends up being like, we just needed one more passer back there who was actually, also strong on the ball and good tackler.
Maybe they just recall Vincent Kompany. You're crap at management.
Well,
you're bad. You're like Anderlecht. You're too good for Anderlecht. So
what happened to John Stones? Where's he?
Well, John Stones, after the end of last season, when Kompany overtook him. I'm not sure why he didn't come on actually at the weekend.
Okay, so the Irish Examiner again. That's that story. No love lost. Ireland boss bites back at Switzerland's style jibes. Apparently, Switzerland didn't make those style jibes. So this is great. And we would never have known that if we hadn't actually had a Swiss journalist saying, no, that's not what the translation meant. That's not what he said at all. There was a translation story here. Emmett Malone has this. Ireland's miserable competitive record of the past 20 years against the Swiss suggests Mick McCarthy's side might be overdue a slice of good fortune against the top seeds in this group. It's clearly too much to hope, though, that Vladimir Petkovic's side's game plan for this evening might go as badly for the visitors as yesterday's pre-match press conference. The coach and two players, Schär and Xhaka, turned up for an event at which most of those present were reduced to a state of helpless bewilderment by the translation, or sometimes lack of it. So maybe this is our tactic. It's like, get the opponents in, make them speak in a foreign language, get somebody to make up what they're saying, and just be like, Jesus, what he just said about you, I couldn't tell you. Okay, I'll tell you. He said you're like evil, and your style of play is crap. Now, what do you think of that? He's still talking.
Why does that interpreter have an Irish accent?
Yeah, well. Is there anything else on that? Mike Ross, Schmidt speaks softly but carries a big stick. Brian O'Driscoll had a point last night on Wednesday Night Rugby that he thought that the pressure was visibly getting to Joe Schmidt at this stage, and it might be, it feels like it might be.
Well, is it getting to him, or is he kind of annoyed with how his team has performed this year? I think it's probably the latter. Like coming out and addressing the media early last week, coming out and addressing the media earlier this week. I think they're kind of defiant moments, are they not? Especially last week. This week was more to do with the fact that we had to release a team, so I better come out and actually address it. So I think calling that defiance is probably being a little bit too kind to him. But I think last week, I certainly, immediately after the England game, I thought we are absolutely screwed here. And you're kind of looking for a sign. You're impatient. You can't wait until the next game. You can't wait for Ireland to come up against the Wales team. What are you going to see in the press conferences? And you see Joe Schmidt come out and kind of address the media. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. I think he is looking old. People tend to look old when they get older. That happens. He has had a bad year. He's been weathered quite a bit. So I think it's natural. He's a human after all. And is that going to manifest itself in terms of how Ireland perform in the World Cup? Time will tell. The back page of the Irish Independent is Keane lashes Ireland trio. That's from the Off the Ball Roadshow last night. provincial series doing disservice to GEA, says Colm Collins. So he's doubled down on this. He's spoken about this before, I think, about how the provincial championships just really are holding us back, he says. They've long since outlined their usefulness, but for some reason there's no desire to grasp the nettle and make the necessary changes. If we keep going like this, we'll lose more players. I think Colm Collins wants something resembling a Champions League format for the overall GEA. They've got Kerry every single year for the last 6 years, and they've done brilliant. Like, outside of that, they've done well. They almost made it to the Super 8s this year. Navan beat them in a cracker in a round 4 qualifier, and yet every single year their Munster Championship is just pointless because they keep getting drawn against Kerry.
Meath beat them in Navan, did they? You said Navan beat them.
I said Meath beat them, sorry. Was it in Navan? I can't remember. It was. Sorry for kind of distilling Meath down to one town. Murray and Sexton set to return. Schmidt recalls big guns, says Keane Tracy. A couple of possible Ireland teams doing the rounds across the papers today. They are different, so it seems that the team hasn't been leaked. But between Keane Tracy's team and I think it's Jerry Thornley's team, they both go with the same back row, which has Jack Conan at 6 and CJ Stander at 8. So will there be a back row where the two of them can coexist in the future? Potentially, but the headline there, Murray and Sexton set to start.
The back page of the Irish Sun this morning, and it is Swiss Cross. Euro 2020 qualifier. Mick McCarthy has welcomed... I'm going to start this one again. Mick McCarthy has welcomed Switzerland to Pleasantville and insisted there is no shortage of aggression from them. Wow. You're no shrinking violets, are you, Switzerland? He said to a comment that didn't exist.
Well, Mick McCarthy was making the point that aggression is the way most of the top teams play now. Liverpool are aggressive, Manchester City are aggressive, particularly without the ball. So what are you pointing at Ireland's aggression for?
No, it's like exactly what you want from your team. And Gary in Deck Rage. Gary Neville has hit out Declan Rice and believes he should not be allowed to play for England. Rice, 20, won 3 senior caps for Ireland, but jumped ship to line out for the country of his birth before playing in a competitive international with the boys in green. And then Roy's Not So Keen. The song, obviously, from Morrissey. Roy Keane has launched a stinging attack on Jonathan Walters for his behaviour toward the end of his time with Ireland and accused the media of nasty personal attacks on Martin O'Neill. You're going to get to hear all that for yourself a little bit later on this evening. And the Racing Post, Sir Dragonet can bounce back in Ledger, says excited O'Brien. St. Ledger market mover Sir Dragonet is expected to take a significant step forward from last month's disappointing defeat at the Curragh, according to trainer Aidan O'Brien, who will also turn to the well-fancied Il Paradiso in his bid to win a 7th Doncaster Classic. We have a big name coming for you this Friday week on Friday Night Racing that we're very much looking forward to. In the meantime,
back page of the Irish Daily Mail is biting back to something that didn't need to be bit back to because the quote did not exist. Mick happy to win ugly after a Swiss style jibe, while Ireland players look pretty confident. Pep wants new signing after Laporte blow meanwhile, so he's going to look for a new centre back in the January transfer window after Laporte was ruled out for the rest of the year. I presume he means the calendar year. So he needs to repair the lateral cartilage in his right knee. So he's had an operation in Barcelona. All the Manchester City players have, with all the money being pumped into the north of England with all their fantastic facilities, they all still have to go to Barcelona for their important operations. Benjamin Mendy had to go. One of the other players recently had to go as well.
What is it that they can do in Barcelona that they can't do in
I really have no idea.
What is it that the Spanish medical authorities are happy to do that you can't be getting done in England, I wonder?
I have no idea, really. It's gone well over my head.
Quite an insult to the NHS and to any of the private clinics.
Exactly. They say that
Harley Street must be turning in its grave.
The Middle Eastern money is contributing to English society, they say. Well, not to the NHS, it seems. Back page of the Irish Daily Star is a pain in the Swiss. Mick will make it an unpleasant night for their rivals at the Aviva. Keane's blast at Walters is the line from last night's roadshow. Ince joins bandwagon, I should say, as mentioned previously. And no blanket approach, says Carl O'Kane. Rory Gallagher reassuring Derry fans that he has more than one style of play. Derry GA faced a backlash in some quarters in the wake of Gallagher's appointment with his reputation as a coach who plays defensive football. But he says, obviously, when we got involved with Donegal, we brought a new dimension to defensive football. I think it's a little extreme, and a lot of it is based on one game where we lined out with Donegal against Dublin in the 2011 All-Ireland semi-final. I think it's probably a bit more than that. Going into Fermanagh, to be fair to Fermanagh, I was looking for a really short-term hit. And you kind of have to give him a bit of credit for that, but at the same time, I think you have to say that there was a bigger body of evidence than just one semi-final with Donegal at that time. And to be fair, after that, 2012, they kind of improved this is Roy Gallagher talking about Donegal's defensive style.
Yeah, I mean, Donegal's defensive style was massively attached to a couple of performances where there was a very defensive style, but their cornerbacks were up attacking. Like, they were one of the first teams we actually saw. So Frank McGlynn played cornerback in some of those games and ended up in left half and left corner forward in attacking situations. So there was a creation of a system which was a counter-attack. And so while counter-attack will look incredibly defensive when it's starting out, that Donegal team started this current Donegal team's attacking abilities. And you would not call this current Donegal team hyper-defensive, would you?
Not at all, no.
So I think Rory Gallagher's a great coach and it's going to be an excellent appointment for Derry, but sure, look, it's going to be interesting to see exactly what kind of response he gets from the national media. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you?
Is it Jay Brolly?
Hey.
Joe B?
So the Herald this morning, Keane lashes Irish trio. Do you already do this?
It was the same story in a different newspaper, yeah.
Former number 2 in tirade against Walters, Arter and Ward. And a second replay of Dublin and Kerry draw. We knew this, I think. Frank Roach is confirming it, that no penalties. There'll be no penalty shootout in an All-Ireland final over our dead bodies.
Thank God.
I know, that'd be great, wouldn't it?
Well, after...
You think keep going, replay after replay after replay? Forever and ever?
No, I'm just saying that Dublin would likely win a penalty shootout.
Because Paul Gainey would miss again?
Well, no, given Jim Gavin's level of control, he'd probably have that off to a fine art as well. There's something a bit more chaotic about actually live football.
Very chaotic.
Back page of The Guardian is seeing it like a beach ball. Imperious Smith weathers storm to take charge of Test, and that photograph, or a similar version of the photograph, is on the back page of the London Times as well. Seeing it like a beach ball, Smith back where he left off to frustrate struggling Archer at windy Old Trafford.
Okay, so Jerry O'Connor has stepped down. The Clare Echo are reporting this morning as joint manager of the Clare senior hurling team. This is Pádraig McMahon with the story here. The squad's official Twitter page has confirmed reports in the Clare Echo that the Killanena native won't be putting his name forward for a 4th season in charge. Apologies if I got that townland name wrong. First appointed as senior joint managers in October 2016. Obviously, they've only won the Munster Senior Hurling League in 2019, but an incredible career as joint managers of originally the minor team when they won provincial glory in 2010 and 2011. So it's a long time on the road with that group of players, 9 years from Jerry O'Connor's perspective. And of course, they won 3 back-to-back All-Ireland and Munster Under-21 titles from 2012 to 2014. So you'd be hoping that team now are starting to reach their peak.
Yeah, and you'd imagine Donald Maloney is going to hang around as well. Just because Jerry O'Connor is gone doesn't mean they're literally handcuffed together. So I think Donald Maloney actually stayed on with the Under-21s or doing minors for a while after O'Connor had left as well. And we've got the Irish News, by the way, this morning. They're going with ex-tip keeper Gleeson in line for hurling hell, which is an interesting story. McCarthy not burdened by weight of history, meanwhile, and Gaelic Life as well this morning. Right man for the job, Gerard O'Kane says Gallagher's selection is good for Derry. My apology to David Goff then, says Joe Brolly.
Ooh, we should look at that.
I wonder what he said. Did he not? He went on Radio Kerry then on Monday night and doubled down on it.
Oh, did he?
On his analysis, yeah. He was like, there was no way it was a penalty and there wasn't a red card.
Right.
So he's failed to treble down on it, I think. He's actually maybe watched the game.
Back?
Yeah, well, I'm sure Joe Brolly was watching it live as well.
Well, he was at the game, obviously.
Just because you're at the game, you know.
Right, okay, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to be back with Gary Breen talking about Ireland against Switzerland and some other stuff, maybe.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
I hear you some wiring needs a fixing, ma'am. The name's Buzz, on account of my work.
No chance.
Not all cowboys ride horses. All safe electric registered electrical contractors must give you a certificate of completion that shows their work meets approved standards. Find one nearby on safeelectric.ie.
The 2019 Boyle Sports World Grand Prix Darts is back at the City West Convention Centre, Dublin from the 6th to the 12th of October. See 32 of the biggest darting stars on the planet, including world number 1 Michael van Gerwen, former Grand Prix champion Darrell Gurney, plus fan favourite Peter Wright. Get your tickets now at ticketmaster.ie and search darts. The 2019 Boyle Sports World Grand Prix Darts at City West. Game on.
OTB AM.
Yeah, okay, you're very welcome back this morning. It's OTBM. We're here with you every morning from 7:30 until 9:30. It's a radio show in your earballs. If you want us, you can get us on the Go Loud app. We recommend you get over to the Play Store and download the Go Loud app. It gives you access to a bunch of amazing podcasts, all of ours, obviously, and some other ones that you might like that we've recommended for you. And, of course, OTB Sports Radio, which is our brand new live sports radio station, which exists in full, glorious Technicolor every day, 24 hours non-stop, top-quality sports content. Our favourite bit is obviously 7:30 to 9:30. That's the best bit, right?
Is that your favourite bit?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, sorry, of course. We're on air. Yeah, my favourite
Screw
bit
you,
as well.
Eoin. Like, you know, so you've got to have self-love or you've got no love at all.
Is that true?
I mean, you do. You've got to look after yourself, right? It's a big, bad world out there, especially you're going to Japan. I'm a bit worried about you, you know?
So am I.
I mean, you are going to look fairly exotic in Japan.
I know, yeah.
There's going to be a lot of people approaching you.
No, I think...
Offering you things that you've never seen. Hinting at worlds that you don't even know exist out there.
I think Japan's a fairly exotic place. I don't think they need...
What are you going to do when that happens? You better just remember you've got to go to work. Eoin didn't come into work on Monday. Can you believe it?
I've taken the days annual.
Yeah, but you should have taken the day off. Irrespective of what happened, you should have come in and faced your public. People needed to know. They needed your interpretation of the game. Not coming in the day after your county or in All-Ireland final is not a good look. I would just question your commitment levels.
Well, I was expecting a result one way or the other.
You're Harry Arter with like an imaginary quad injury here.
If I'd known,
lying on the bench going, I can't go to work. I've been in coppers until 6.
If I'd known it was going to be a draw.
Yeah, and then when it was a draw, did you not change your plans?
No, it was too late at that point.
No, it wasn't. It was like, I've got to go in. I must unload. I must tell everybody.
I'd already kind of like budgeted for a 4-day week mentally.
I mean, you're only at 80%. Is that what you're saying for the rest of the week?
No, as in I've got 20% for each day. So yeah, 80% overall for the week.
All right.
That's how maths work, isn't it?
So there's a probable Ireland team named alongside Dan McDonald's piece in the papers today in the Irish Independent. Game kicks off at 7:45. Live commentary for you on the Off the Ball Show News Talk from Nathan and David Myler, who obviously has just recently retired because of that knee injury. So the Ireland team, according to Dan, probably will be Randolph in goals, Keown Duffy at centre back, Stevens and Coleman at full back, Glenn Whelan, Jeff Hendrick, Conor Harahan, and then James McLean, Robinson and McGoldrick is going to be the starting 11. Gary Breen is with us this morning to talk to us about this. Gary, how you doing?
I'm very well. Good morning, guys.
Yeah, so it's been a bit quiet around here for the last 24 hours. No big stories brewing, not making international news at all. Maybe we'll park that for now and talk about some football.
Okay.
We had a Swiss journalist in with us yesterday who was basically saying Switzerland feel like they need to win this game because they drew their home game, having been 3-0 up against Denmark. I think you're actually going to be okay if you draw your away games, but you do have to start winning games to get out of a group as difficult as this one. So does it feel like we have to win this game ourselves?
No, I don't think we have to win it. No, I don't. I think Mick McCarthy has said that although he'll be going to win it, and I've no doubt in my mind about that, having worked with him, he'll expect his team to win in Dublin. He always has done. But I think he's quite pragmatic in terms of saying if he got a draw, he'd take it. And I think that just keeps us in a really good position. I think Mick's always put the emphasis on the fact that we've done brilliantly for the first part of this campaign. He said the 10 points in the 4 games is great, but it's nothing more than he expected. And he'll have said to those guys as they went off on their summer holidays, listen, great job, great character in terms of coming back from where they'd been at such a low ebb before he came in. But he would have said to them, and no doubt in my mind, he would have said, listen, the hard work's still to come and it starts tonight.
Yeah, so in terms of the quality of performances that we've seen from the team so far, what level do you think they're going to be at? Like, because they need to step it up, and in fairness, they stepped it up from Gibraltar to Georgia, and they need a massive step up now as well.
Yeah, listen, Mick's not put any spin on it, has he? When we've played reasonably well, he said there's good parts. When we haven't played particularly well, he said it was a horrible game at times, he said. So, listen, he'll be honest enough in that, and he'll know that they have to step up, but he'll give them that belief. He'll said that they'll have done the work. He's been quite vocal in terms of how much work his analysts have done in trying to find weaknesses within this Swiss team, because they're a dogmatic team. They're good, they're consistent. In fact, they qualify for 7 of the last 8 major tournaments, shows you that. And in terms of their players, they've got players who are playing Champions League, Europa League, so they have got good players. There's no doubt. But he'll have a belief and a system that he thinks he can put in place that can hurt this Swiss team. And coupled with the fact that he'll have the crowd behind him. He said this going into the game, that the mood's changed. He feels it, that the supporters are back with the team again, and that's great, because as an Irish team, we're not ever going to achieve anything without the Irish supporters behind us.
When you hear the name Switzerland, certainly as Irish football fans, it kind of sends shivers on our spine. We've got a bit of PTSD. Like, I think obviously you would have been playing those two games, 2003, 2002. Yeah. 2002, I think, was actually Mick McCarthy's his last home game, or maybe his last game in general, when he lost 2-1 to Switzerland. You were playing that night at centre half, obviously. Like, what are your memories from that Swiss team? Was it kind of a situation where they were the better team on those two occasions, or were they two opportunities missed for Ireland?
Well, certainly two opportunities missed. We went into the game expecting to win, as we always had done in Dublin, but it was a surreal atmosphere. It really was, in terms of how consistent we'd been 3 or 4 years going into that. Then we had to go to the World Cup, have a decent World Cup, come back, beat what was considered a good Finland team in our first game of that new season, 3-0 away. Then we'd go to Russia and play dreadfully, give away dreadful goals. So we knew the pressure then was on Mick because of the scenario, because of the popularity contest with him and Roy Keane. It wasn't anything to do with the results as such. It was just the fact that Roy Keane and supporters were backing him. And I think we went there, and I think we usually had a swagger about us going and playing at home to Dublin. With that confidence, we proved it over those 2 or 3 years that we could beat most teams there. But there was definitely a different sense there. We felt that there was a bit of hostility towards me. We were desperate to protect our manager because we obviously had so much faith in him. And I think it affected us. It really did, even though we were experienced players. And we conceded a bad goal to begin with, forced an equaliser late on. I think I bundled the guy in for an own goal, and then give away a dreadful goal late on, and then everything just changed from that moment on.
Yeah, there's photos of you celebrating that goal, actually. I think you might have claimed it, Gary. Yeah. There's also photos of you and Jörg Stiel, the Swiss goalkeeper, going at it. I'm not sure, is it that game or a different one?
Oh, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I can't remember, I'm afraid. I'm sure I was going at. There's a few times I was going at with Shay.
So you'd fight with all the goalkeepers, basically. There's so many of them that you can't actually remember which game it was.
You know these goalkeepers now, you can't barely touch them. They're a protected species, aren't they?
Oh, there he is. And he's got, that's a great picture. You're the captain that night, so where is it? That's in the away games in Jacob Park in Basel.
Oh, yeah, Mick would have been gone by then.
He's wearing a massive bandage. Don't know if you were responsible for that or not, but so that's in October 2003. Yeah, so that would have been under Brian. When you said, like, so that's the end for that era. Is the damage not really done in the Russia game where they kind of killed us, and like it was always very hard to come back from that? Or did you feel like it was actually okay, you're going to be able to come back from that?
Oh yeah, no, we had such confidence that we'd come back from that. Of course we did, in terms of how we performed in games leading into that. The fact that we went to Portugal, Holland, were so good, and gave good account of ourselves. We had a real belief, and that obviously that's topped up by the fact that we've just had a major finals under our belts as such. So we had immense confidence in winning that game, but there was just something different, and it was a shame really, because I've never questioned the Ireland supporters. They'll always back the shirt, but there was an element there that was taking Roy's side ahead of Mick's, and without going over old ground again. That was just the mood, and as a team that evening, we let our manager down and we let ourselves down really, because if had we won that game, now listen, had we won that game against Switzerland, I don't think that kind of big story between Roy not being in the Ireland team anymore would have died down. I don't believe that for one moment, but we would have been able just to bat it off for a little bit.
Yeah, it was a crazy time, and it kind of still hangs slightly over Irish football. It comes up from time to time. It came up again a little bit last night. Let's talk a little bit about what you expect from the Swiss team. Now, you said that they are a side that have qualified for 7 out of the last 8 tournaments. Yeah. It's kind of weird that, notwithstanding they've done that, they haven't really turned into a team who you would consider a quarter-final team, or a team who are like trying to surge forward to make a semis. They don't have the talent pool of a Belgium, say, who are everybody's favourite dark horses, and now obviously going to be favourites for most tournaments when they go into it because of the quality players they have, but they haven't kicked on as a football culture where we're actually scared of them tonight.
Well, I think that might be a little bit dismissive in terms of you think about, and the comparison to the Belgian team is an obvious one. But don't forget, in the Nation Leagues, they've beat this Belgian golden generation 5-2. This is a talented Swiss team, and they probably are underperforming then when they get to the major finals. But they're a team who will look to dominate possession. It will go through Xhaka in the base of midfield, and enabling them to do that, then they can get players in around our number 4 area. So whoever's playing deep midfield, the suggestion is it will be Glenn Whelan. But We can't allow him to be isolated. And likewise, then, when they're out of possession, they quickly become a really good defensive structure, back five. The midfielders get back easy. So even trying to open them up will be difficult. But as I said, Mick said they've done their homework, which is refreshing to hear, because I don't think that was the case of the previous regime in terms of where they can find gaps. And I think they'll deliver that on the training field. And so those players going out there tonight will know exactly how they can hurt this Swiss team, but it won't be easy.
How do you stop Granit Xhaka? I mean, like we've seen at the very top level, he can be a little bit susceptible, be a little bit rash. Like he gave away the worst penalty of all time, I think, in the North London derby at the weekend. Like,
don't mention that though. He doesn't like to mention the bad things. He said, "Remember how many chances he set up." But no, listen, he's a good player in terms of that, and I think he's probably even better for the Swiss team. I've always argued I don't think he's an Arsenal central midfielder in terms of getting Arsenal back to the top. I've never felt that. Him coming in at the same time as Mustafi for a huge investment to take the pressure off of Wenger. He bought those players early on in the off-season. And so we build them up as being top players. I don't think he's good enough to that. I think he is a liability at times for Arsenal. But there's no doubt in his ability on the ball. And if we allow him to dictate play, he'll do just that. If he gets within striking range of our goal, he'll do that as well. So I think he's the type of player that Mick probably will go after and say we had to hunt him down, stop him playing. And if we make it difficult for him and we're in his face, then we don't know how he's going to react.
Yeah, because like you look at the quotes that have popped up in the newspaper this morning, Mick talking about aggression and how aggression is a hallmark of some of the best teams, of Liverpool, of Manchester City, especially without the ball. And it seems that under Mick McCarthy, we're better placed to actually kind of hammer the hammer, so to speak, and actually go after someone like Granit Xhaka and actually press them quite a bit without the ball, when Ireland are without the ball.
Well, listen, even in terms of how hit and miss it's been since Mick took over in terms of the players getting used to how he wants to play, what has been obvious is the fact that we squeeze the pitch. Our defence gets to the halfway line, which allows our midfielders to get close to players like Xhaka and allows midfielders to get in advanced areas and support our front players, which is at times they've been so isolated. So I expect us to play high up the pitch. I know that likes of Duffy and that is not particularly comfortable doing it, but he's getting better at it. Richard Keough will probably be vocal making sure we do squeeze the pitch. And if you play centre half for Mick McCarthy, you have to do it. And I think keeping with what we are seeing with the elite level teams all over the world is that they're pressing high. They're trying to win and force turnovers high up the pitch so that when they do that, they're within striking distance. And too often over the last couple of years, whenever we've won the ball back, it's been on our own 18-yard box. We've got 2/3 of the pitch to try and get up, and it's difficult.
Go on.
Like when we went into this campaign, Gary, there was an idea that we might strike up an absolutely world-class or close to world-class partnership on the right-hand side with Matt Doherty and Seamus Coleman. Callum Robinson's
I don't know about world-class.
Okay,
you're stretching it a little bit there.
Top class. Let's go with top class.
Top class, yeah.
that was stretching it a little bit, to be fair.
Right-hand.
Callum Robinson's going to play on the right-hand side today. Like that relationship between Seamus Coleman and Callum Robinson quietly could become a very top situation for Ireland, couldn't it?
A productive one, yeah, no doubt. In terms of you think of the way that Seamus is always looking to bomb on, I would expect that Callum Robinson, even from a wide right position, will attack centrally and try and get his goals. And I saw him playing against Chelsea, as I did all the other Sheffield United boys, and it's a great bonus for us that they're now playing in the Premier League. I expect them to turn up and play with their Irish shirts with real confidence now. And the very fact that he got his goal, he had a bad miss early on, and you were hoping that wouldn't affect him, but he done great, he really did. And he was not alone. Enda Stevens now on that left-hand side was so good against Chelsea, just couldn't cope with him. So these players are now coming into this Irish squad with real confidence, similar with Hourihan at Aston Villa. But then the flip side of that also is that the lads who are struggling a little bit at the moment, club football, Jeff Hendricks, Duffy who's been dropped, McLean who's struggling in a bottom of the table championship team, all that will go out the window because they'll be coming back into the Irish squad, desperate to do well. And I'm looking really forward to this game tonight.
What do you think is going to happen?
I think we'll get a positive result. I think it will be difficult, but it's just on those moments. There's fine moments, and we have to be concentrated. Don't give anything away. And I think the Swiss, as we've heard in the build-up, they're not looking forward to this game.
The viewers here this morning will recognise that it's gone very dark there. Gary's.
I was going to say someone's turned the light off. Let me know.
Is it Brexit related? Is that what's happened? It's like.
Bear with me. Bear with me. There you go. That's better. Try and get a bit of light on the situation.
Oh yeah, okay. It wasn't a storm.
Go on, carry on.
I actually
carry on.
I did think there was a storm, maybe that's what had happened.
No, there you go. Sun shining now. That's better.
Look,
can see me now. Oh no, that's not better now. People can actually see me. That's
it's perfect. It's perfect. I always love that piece of modern art you have behind you as well. It's like a perfect backdrop. Where did you get it? Is there a story behind it?
No, it's just a local painter who made created it as such, and it's just in this office. So it's nice. It summed up the mood of the. I must have to change it now for some sky blue thinking and stuff. Now I think.
But that was Ireland under Martin O'Neill, and
yeah, it felt that way.
Yeah. Look, the FAI situation at the moment, from a financial perspective, is obviously in dire straits. There was a story yesterday about how much qualification would mean financially, and like it would mean a lot to football people if the team could qualify while everything that's going on in the FAI is going on. Does any of that ever seep through to them? I mean, certainly this group of players who would know the League of Ireland intimately might be a bit more tuned in.
Yeah, listen, in terms of how many players have played League of Ireland now and have made the breakthrough to the national team, which is great. We'd love to have that pathway and have more people do it. But in terms of their mindset, listen, these players are desperate to get to major finals for their own dreams to be fulfilled. Of course they have. They've grown up dreaming of playing for Ireland, but they are aware of just how important it is for the nation that we're there. Of course, in terms of those summers are not the same. And certainly major championships, even the organisers will say they're not the same without the Irish supporters there. So that's the pressure you have. That's a responsibility you have. You have the honour of playing for Ireland, but you are aware of the responsibility and how important it is to the nation, because if you weren't the one putting on the shirt, you'd be the one just cheering the team on.
Yeah. All right. So you're feeling relatively confident about how tonight's going to go and how the rest of the group is going to go, having seen enough of the opposition at this stage?
I'm relatively confident in terms of the team will be as organised as possible. That's where I get my confidence from. I'm not suddenly thinking that this is a group of players who are going to be expansive and unbelievable and world class, like Eoin said. I don't believe that. But I do think they're better than they've been. Than we've been told. I do think that collective is a better group than we were consistently told that they can't do this, can't do that. Mick will be under no illusions. He knows where their failings are, but it'll work to their positive.
In terms of Robinson's future, we were talking about this in the show yesterday, and there was a sense that perhaps he's actually going to end up being our out-and-out striker, and that maybe there is still room for Matt Doherty to play a role on the right. Do you see that for him as somebody who actually we should be developing the future around now and turning him into an out-and-out centre forward, a number 9 or a 9.5 or whatever it is? So it's actually it's a partnership up front with McGoldrick, and that might be better for us in terms of trying to get some goals into the team.
Yeah, listen, I wouldn't rule that out at all, and I think certainly at times at Stamford Bridge he was brilliant. Got on the half turn at 10, found space. They couldn't cope with him. Turned, got his strike off. Put great deliveries in, but then it was also at the point of their attack. So he has that ability. But if you're asking me whether or not it's likely to see them playing two up front tonight, I can't see it. And it's not because I don't think there'll be a good partnership. It's because I don't think we've got a good enough two-man central midfield to play two centre forwards. And to be perfectly honest, I don't think we've had that since the days of Roy, Mark Kinsella, Matt Holland, and Lee Carsley. I don't think we've had centre midfielders who can play in a two. So that's the reason why, and the very fact that they can do it at Sheffield United is because they have a 3-man midfield and a 5-man back line, so they can afford to do it. But I don't think we can.
Is there anything in how Sheffield United play at the back that we should be looking at? It came up this week when obviously Duffy's not in the team for the last game and they've invested a fair bit of money, and look, maybe he gets back in that team in the next couple of weeks and that's just one of those things, but maybe he doesn't. And yet at the same time we have John Egan playing where he's playing, and understanding that like sometimes I know there's not much time for experimentation, particularly in this group, and particularly for then Mick's career as Ireland manager second time around. But is there anything in that? Should we be looking at that and going, that'll actually, you know how that works, John Egan, you could actually bring that to us. We've got 2 good centre-backs. We might have 3 good centre-backs.
Yeah, I think that was muted a lot, wasn't it? Martin O'Neill would sometimes do it because of the fact that then we could put our fullbacks, our attacking fullbacks in those high advanced areas. But I don't see Mick McCarthy doing it, going to a 3. I know when he initially took over as manager in his first spell, he played 3 at the back. I remember playing at times there with Roy Keane, who was the centre of the 3. And at a time when that was a common theme, we'd seen top German players doing it, Bayern Munich, Sammer, those type of guys. But I don't see Mick going down that route again. But I've been so impressed with John Egan, and not only because the fact that he's in the Premier League now, but I've just seen the strength of character that he's had. He come back from a dreadful injury, rebuilds his career at Gillingham, gets in the League One Team of the Year there, gets his move to Brentford and keeps doing it, and he impresses all the time. So, and he's impressed at Premier League level. Still got a lot to learn, of course. Who didn't when they first went at that level? But I don't see Mick forcing John Egan into a back three. No.
Yeah, okay. I know by this stage, Gary, it's kind of made news everywhere that we had a pretty big road show last night with our friends at Cadbury's. It was in the Borgosh Energy Theatre, so 2,200 people were there for Gary Neville and for Roy Keane. And
I'm not sure they were there for Gary Neville.
I'm not sure they were either. Well, I'd say Gary Neville would definitely pull a crowd. There was probably at least 60 people of the 2,200 who were like, oh, I really want to see what Gary Neville has to say about this. But yeah, and so look, you obviously have spent a fair bit of time with Roy Keane at this stage, and he was everything that Roy Keane is. John Duggan described it earlier on. You know, it was he was charismatic. It was charming. It was funny, and then it got hard, and then you were like quite uncomfortable for sections of it. So I don't know really what it was like being a teammate in that environment, because you know, like really a lightning wit at times, and then also obviously capable of moments of great anger.
What's the question?
What was that like being a teammate?
Brilliant, because he was an iconic player, brilliant midfielder. He really was, and he was the type of midfielder. And I know, like everyone knows, like by watching him and stuff like that. But what he did was incredible. Even at that level, we're international players. I know he's above us in terms of a Manchester United player as such, but he elevates your game as a teammate. He was that good, he really was. And in terms of people thinking about a captain, there was no like war cry speeches as you were going out. It was just calm, relaxed, and as soon as the whistle went, then he came into his environment, and he was brilliant. And in terms of knowing him playing with him for 10 years, I don't particularly know him that well. I really enjoyed his company, as you just said. Funny guy at times, really was, rapier wit, and just a great pleasure to play alongside him. And for someone like me who's I know he's not that much older than me, but he when I came into the squad, still relatively young, you want to learn off of him. You want to learn off the Manchester United captain. What do they do at United? And he was very, very helpful in terms of how they would train, and you're learning about things like that. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, listen, of course, there's an edge to Roy, but that's why he is box office. That's why you guys want him on these type of shows, because he's a headline act, simple as that.
Yeah, the full roadshow is coming tonight with the two lads at our Carbery Roadshow. But here's a snippet of Roy Keane talking about where his relationship is at with Alex Ferguson. Have a look.
When did you last speak to Ferguson?
Not since then, obviously.
Not one conversation?
I think when he apologises to me, I probably will say hello to him, yeah. No interest in speaking to the man.
Nothing even over the past year, the ill health, made you think, maybe I'll just give him a call, maybe life's too short?
No. When he apologises to me. And David Gill. No problem.
Have we got another section?
Yeah, they did have another section, don't worry, because it goes to an ad break after that, Gary. But yeah, it's a bit mad, isn't it, that this partnership, which was at the heart of Manchester United's first proper great era under Ferguson, where they do eventually land the Champions League, that they can't make peace no matter what happens at this stage.
Yeah, listen, in terms of the romantic view of it, you hope that everyone was great friends. But listen, at that level, you know, they're both serial winners. You know, Ferguson has discarded so many iconic players at United. You know, he just gets rid of them, as simple as that. That's that ruthless nature, and that's something that you're probably looking at the current Manchester United manager and saying, do you have that presence? You know, it's all well and good in terms of what Ferguson's done in terms of cultivating these players, recruiting the best players to make that Manchester United team as strong as possible. But people dismiss how ruthless he is in terms of discarding those successful players to bring those players through. And that's something you look at Solskjaer now. Does he have that presence? I'm not convinced. But certainly you're hearing about Roy. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that Roy's not particularly best friends with him as such. It was no shock to hear that.
Yeah, it struck me earlier when we were playing that clip that Ferguson and Keane are very, very similar characters, and that like ultimately expecting either of them to back down is probably a bit ridiculous.
Right, listen, I don't think it's probably ever going to happen. Both of them's probably going to think that they're the one who's been wronged, or they're the one who's right, and that's just the way it's going to play out.
Yeah, Gary, good stuff. Enjoy the game tonight. Thanks a million for joining us.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks, guys. Good luck.
That's Gary Breen giving us some thoughts on the game tonight. He's very upbeat about how we're doing at the moment. How do you feel?
Yeah, pretty good as well after listening to that, to be honest. Kind of hammers home a few ideas. I think you look at the Denmark collapse that they endured and the calamities that occurred in their own box, and how Ireland can actually create a little bit of consternation in opposition boxes. That's one.
McGoldrick is the right man to do that, isn't he?
He is the right man to do that. From set pieces as well, we're always a threat. Hey, I can't believe I've just said that, even though it's the biggest cliche around Irish football. That exists, but it exists because it's true. And I don't know. I think life is a bit more upbeat as an Irish football fan. Independent of everything else that's happening. Just on the pitch. Just on the pitch.
Okay. That under 20s team is good.
Yeah, exactly, and
that's the team to get behind, right?
It hasn't on the pitch only. It hasn't been a bad 2019.
Yeah. Speaking of which, last night Stephen Kenny did tell us that he was happy with the hype around his under 21 team. Have a look.
Yeah, no, I'm not really worried about that at all. Because I'm not concerned about that at all, because I want the players to go and really be confident and express themselves in a confident manner. So that doesn't concern me. I think it's important to have. You want the under-21 internationals to be events in themselves, and that hasn't always been the case. Sometimes there has been some good games over the years in Sligo and Cork and so forth. But I think sometimes there's been small crowds and not a lot of coverage. And I think we want them to be events in themselves, because we want the players to really have an incredible desire to play for Ireland at under-21 level, and see it as a real vehicle and a stepping stone to get into the senior international team, and also to help Ireland qualify for the Ireland under-20 or for the European under-21 championships, which we've never managed in our history, never qualified for. So I was at it this year in Italy, and it was a brilliant tournament. So all the top players, like Moise Keane, for example, and Cutrone, played last week against each other for Wolves and Everton, playing front for Italy. England had Calvert-Lewin, Solanke, Tammy Abraham up front. They had Ben Foden and so forth, and Spain had Danny Ceballos, and all great tournament, 20,000 at the matches.
Yeah, great stuff there from the current Ireland manager at under-21 level, and the next senior manager, of course, that's Stephen Kenny. But now it's time for the return of Shot Clock. It's been a couple of weeks since we've done this properly. Kieran Donaghy, good morning to you. How you doing?
Morning, Ger. How's the farm?
Yeah, good. For anybody who's just joined us, we've got 2 minutes, and maybe a bit longer if we decide, to get through.
We'll try and keep it to 2.
Yeah, we'll try and keep it to 2. So some of the big topics that are exercising people this week, and we've got about 6 talking points this week. We're going to start with the referee watch. So unbelievable pressure on David Goff heading into the All-Ireland football final. He ends up giving a penalty. There's a red card. Ordinarily, if you give a penalty and a red card, you're going to get slaughtered for the performance. Most people did not slaughter David Goff, and yet the RTE Sunday Game panel at half-time were digging into him like mad. So what did you make of it?
Yeah, I don't know what to make of the RTE lads going after him, to be honest. I thought it was a bit bewildering, I won't lie. Because there was a lot of pressure on him, and I thought he was really good. He was really sharp. Again, he and I said this before the game, he's the best in the business at using his linesmen and umpires, and they play a huge part. So rather than David Goff, the referee, I think it's more David Goff's team referee games. I think he very much looks like it, like the NFL would, where there's an officiating crew and they really try and work together to make sure that they spot all the points. But for the penalty incident, no, I've been in there plenty of time and haven't got penalties for that behaviour. But and I've always had this argument with referees, because I've been in the situation where a high ball's coming in, and if a defender turns his back on the ball and puts his 2 hands around your neck or up around your shoulder area and you can't see the ball, it's a free. It'll be a free anywhere in the pitch, and it's a penalty all day long. So I think he got that one spot on. I think the red card for Johnny Cooper, look, I know Kieran Whelan and Joe Brawley came out about it afterwards, but they, Joe's stuck by his guns, but Joe stick by his guns anyway. But I know Kieran Whelan pulled it back. The Stephen O'Brien penalty shout was no penalty, so he got that spot on. And I think he got the Tom Sullivan one right as well. I think John Small was incredibly smart. He knew when to go down. He knew to make a bit of a deal of it. He knew who he was running against. He was very smart in that way. But I think David Goff is the best around it, not falling for play acting and guys kind of, making sure that they make a meal out of a decision. And look, Conor Lane has a lot to live up to for the replay, but he would have been on the line the last day, so he's a guy that has ref finals before and has been probably listening to a lot of stuff in the last few weeks about David Goff being the best referee in Ireland. So I'm sure Conor Lane will want to go out there and match David Goff's performance and put in a performance of his own. And I would say we're all competitive beings in sport, and when you've got the two top guys kind of at it, they'll be at a battle to see who is the best.
Yeah, I disagree with the Tom Sullivan thing. I think he could easily have given a yellow card for that one, and no one would have batted his eyelid.
But a weaker ref would have given into it, though, Gerard. It was a very one where you'd level up the team, sent him off, but you got to give him credit for being your man made a bit of a meal of that. It was a hand around the waist. It wasn't a deliberate pull down.
It's still a yellow card, though. I think that if Tom Sullivan hadn't already been on a yellow, it would have been a yellow. And it's your point. Look, it's a small point, right? Because ultimately, I don't think. Well, maybe it does have a very big impact on the game if Kerry go back down to 14 at that stage. But all in all, I think it was an excellent performance for somebody under a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Next topic, Gerard, the rugby squad. Look, we have to talk about it. I know you've covered a good bit of it. Klein in and Toner out. We'll talk about that one. But the big one I want to talk about with you is Zebo. And I know the IRFU have the policy in place, and they're right, because you can't be letting all our best players shoot off all over the world and be bringing them back for games, and our own teams that we love very much, the Munsters, the Leinsters, the Connacht and the Ulsters. You don't want to see them dwindle. You want to see them at the top table competing, which they have over the last 15 years, and credit has to be given to the IRFU for that. But having said that, a player with Zebo's skill set, talent, edge and temperament, surely there has to be a case of, the Six Nations, if you're over in France, you're not thought about, you're not included. But surely on a World Cup year, does that go out the window, Ger, where people can say, okay, it's a World Cup year, he's been out in France for the last 2 years, he hasn't played with the Six Nations team for 2 years, but he's flying in France, and it's a World Cup year, and we're trying to win a World Cup for the first time ever. Do we make an allowance on a World Cup year? Just throw it at you. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that the tree that doesn't bend will break, right? That's my view on all this stuff. You make your rules as guidelines and you stick to them as best as you can in your conversations, but on a case-by-case basis, to try and win a competition, you make the decision at the time that's best for the outcome. In this case, I would say that's having Simon Zebo in the squad. We don't really have that much of an X factor in our back line. We've decided now to go with the big lads, and so it's going to be a lot of bruising, a lot of hard running, a lot of taking the ball into contact, and I don't know, it seems stubbornness on the part of the IRFU at this point not to include Simon Zebo in the squad.
Yeah, I think Andrew Conway can be an X factor for us. He's really good over his head. He's really quick. He's electric at times. So I think he can be a bit of an X factor. But just Zebo, in my eyes, he just does bring you that. And if the guy's over in France and he's not playing well, okay, we he's out in France, he's not doing it. But Jesus Christ, he's burning it up in France, and he's just, in my eyes, too good not to be on this trip. And it's, a World Cup year, I think they should make an exception. And that's going forward for the next World Cup as well. If there was another player out in France in the next World Cup and he's doing well enough, you got to look at it. I think we need to revisit our plan for the next World Cup, because the whole cycle this time around has been devised to get us to this point, and all of a sudden we're not really sure we've got enough players. We don't really have enough strength and depth at out half. We don't really have enough strength and depth at scrum half. We don't really even have enough strength and depth on the back row, and it's all down to injury. But actually, maybe we just don't have enough bodies back there. Yeah, tough on Devin Toner as well. Tough on Devin Toner. But look, you have to judge. Joe Schmidt has made the call with Toner, and he's been Toner's guy. Toner has been Joe Smith's guy. So for Joe to make this call, I just think we got to trust him. He must see something in training. Maybe there's a little injury niggle there that they're afraid could flare up. Something has to be there for Joe to go ringing him and saying, no thanks, sorry, Devin. Next topic. Whenever you talk to rugby people in Ireland, one of the main things that they'd bemoan is the fact that we play Gaelic football in particular, because it means that all of those best athletes who could actually be playing rugby end up getting siphoned away. And we saw the perfect example of it when Dean Rock's free was about to be lofted in over the crossbar at the weekend. 2 missing rugby players for Ireland
Kerry midfielders, David Moore and forward Tommy Walsh could easily
get him
have
on the
just
plane
been
to Japan.
practicing their lineouts.
Look, it's mad, and look, I haven't talked to the two lads because it's a closed book inside with the Kerry setup, and credit has to go to Peter Keane for that. There's very little coming out about everything, but no, look, it was unbelievable that the lads did that. No, I remember talking to Dave Moran about it in 17 when Dublin, when Kerry beat Dublin in that league final. Dean Rock, if you remember, had a free from about 50 yards out to win the game and just pulled it wide right. And I remember saying, obviously having a few pints afterwards, if that happened again, and I was thinking at that stage, 17, in an All-Ireland final or down the line, could it be something you'd look at and do? And, I talked to Micheál Quirke about it as well, back then as well. So, maybe it's something that the boys might have up their sleeve for Strand Road in the county championship later on in the year. I'd say fellas left to be putting the ball about 7 or 8 feet over the crossbar. But in fairness to Tommy and Dave, to have the wherewithal, because I was in the stand losing my mind at that stage, to have the wherewithal to talk to umpires, to talk to refs. And I'd say David Goff must have been sitting there with Tommy Walsh, big Tommy Walsh, kind of going, okay, David, I'm going to lift Tommy on the line. I'm going to lift David Moore on the line. Is that okay? And I'd say David was saying, lads, there's enough going on in my head at this stage of the game. Will you ever go away and leave me alone? But huge credit has to be given to have the splink to do it. And not only that, but to have the courage to do it. Because, you can imagine that ball dropping over the crossbar and you're moving with Dave Moore, who's probably 16 stone. Now, Tommy's the horse of a man, so he could probably lift anybody. But, to lift him up, and if Dave had caught it and dropped it at the crossbar, but I thought it was really smart by the boys to actually go to the umpire and the ref and say, lads, is this okay? Because,
did they say that? Is that what happened? Yeah, they got it okayed.
Yeah, there's a clip on Twitter. There's a clip on Twitter that I watched last night where you can see Tommy going into the umpire and he's gesturing that what he's going to do, and then they're not happy with the umpire's reaction. And as I can imagine, the poor umpire must have been going,
you can't
what
do
is
that,
this
lads.
guy saying?
Yeah.
You can't. What are you on about? But they went to David Goff and said it as well. So, but look, there's desperate measures required, desperate actions. Lee Keegan was going other ways about stopping Dean Rock's free a few years ago, and the boys were trying to come up with another way. So,
do you think it's legal?
Huge.
Do you think it's legal? So one scenario is that they stop it, and then the referee says, "Lad, that's a free in because you're actually not allowed to do that." And that's the worst case scenario where they've done it, and then afterwards.
I remember when I was talking about it at the time, I remember kind of saying, the umpire would, the refs would probably panic if you did it in an All-Ireland final. I remember saying that, that they'd have never seen it before, so the ref could do anything. He could give a penalty. It'd be like that scene in semi-pro. I don't know if you've seen that, but when Jackie Moon comes up with the alley-oop, he's Will Ferrell as his actor, and they come up with this alley-oop, he's a dream about it. And when it happens for the first time, the refs blow the whistle and nobody knows what's after happening, you know what I mean? So they call it travel, they call it technical foul, they lose the plot, and Jackie Moon, the coach in the movie, loses the plot as well. So very similar to something like that. Anybody that has seen semi-pro, any basketball fans will know what I'm talking about, Ger.
Okay.
So I'll send you that DVD, it's a good one.
We should find out if it's legal or not, but look...
that'd be a good thing to do. I think there might be something about lifting or assisting a player in the air.
They need somebody on the front. Their technique was poor. It was only going to be one, but they need someone on the front as well. Rugby
listen,
three lads.
It's Tommy Walsh lifting. Don't worry about it. Dave was going up in the air because Dave can jump as well. So, yeah.
You can
next one, Jar.
You can make a comeback yet if that becomes legal. You'll be saving 4 or 5 points a game.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Can you imagine if Dublin start lifting Brian Fenton out around the middle of the field? There'd be no ball caught by anybody. Next topic, Jar, Ireland and Switzerland. Obviously a huge game tonight for our boys to win, but the Shane Long thing, and I actually heard you last night, and I had my notes done on this before that, but I heard you saying that Jeff Hendrick, and I didn't know that Jeff Hendrick wasn't playing and that he's in the squad, and Shane Long wasn't playing, but he's not in the squad. But Shane Long has been a huge player for Ireland, and he's always turned up, he's always put it in, he's always put in a shift, he's a battering ram, he's got pace and power that nobody else in our squad has. And yeah, he's not playing, but I just felt it should we have shown a bit of faith in him and given him the opportunity? Right, you're not playing with Southampton, but he's training every day. He's working on his finishing. He's working on his heading. He's obviously worked on the off-season and his training and his physique and all that. These guys won't come back in bad shape. So I just thought it was a time that, you know, Mick could have showed a bit of faith in him and kind of and given him his opportunity to go out there and maybe bang in 2 goals for Ireland or a goal tomorrow or a goal tonight and put himself more firmly back in the shop window for Southampton. But you know, it's just it's bothering me that he's been kind of not included because he's not playing. It's just it doesn't sit well with me, and I know it doesn't sit well with you. But what about that? What about that idea of should we repay Shane Long's faith and what he's done for Ireland over the last 10 years and kind of go, okay, Shane, you're not playing over there, but we're going to back you. I'll give you an opportunity. Go out there and do it for me, and it'll help you with Southampton as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that we have a friendly coming up in 3 days' time. There's opportunity there to get him in the team, to give him game time, to do exactly what you've done. There's a long tradition stretching back 2 or 3 decades where Irish players who were struggling would suddenly find themselves in the welcome embrace of the Ireland team and be given an opportunity. Mick McCarthy used to do it with Alan Kelly at various stages. When Alan Kelly wasn't playing for his club, he'd get a game for Ireland in a friendly, and suddenly it'd be an opportunity to remind everybody that he could still do his job. So Mick McCarthy has done it in the past, and I think, notwithstanding that I think he could have done it for that, the other thing is that you've got double standards, and double standards from a management team creeps into the rest of the squad's morale, and they go, well, what's the point of me trying here because you've got favourites?
Yeah, it's you don't want that. You don't want that. But you know, I think Shane Long's what he's done for Ireland and the big goals he's got, and just his effort and his work rate for a team is second to none and can be unquestioned. Yeah, there can be questions that he doesn't finish enough and he doesn't do that, but that's okay. But that's okay when you've got Robbie Keane who's banging in goals left, right, and centre over there. But we don't have a Robbie Keane.
Exactly.
We have a few potential guys that can be kind of good, but you got to go with Shane Long and say, I'm backing you, Shane, you're our guy. But maybe Mick isn't Mick's guy, or maybe it's a decision for the future and to go with a bit of youth. But I think he should be in there. The
last free in the last minute of the All-Ireland final, it was interesting. Dean Rock put the ball on the ground and takes it. Obviously he's been doing that for a good while now, but at the end of a game, 77 minutes in, Dean Rock has been obviously putting his body on the line for the entire game. O'Shea was also brilliant and ultimately ends up being involved in that incident as well, kicking. Both two lads kicked 10 points. Do you stick with your free taker at that stage of the game, Kieran? Do you just have to say, you've taken us this far, it's up to you, you've done it for us in the past with the Lee Keegan free that we've talked about? Or do you think, okay, I have 2 other lads who I know are going to be accurate here, or could be accurate, in Costello and Connolly, who are absolutely chomping at the bit because they've had 8 minutes or 9 minutes of action each?
Yeah, it would have been a big call. Obviously, look, it's firstly, Dean Rock was really good. A lot of Dean Rock's frees were, you know, they were relatively easy frees for a guy like Dean Rock. A lot of them were off the hands right in front of the goals. I think 5 or 6 of them were from that close. I think he'd one long one, and then he'd 2 or 3 good ones from play as well. So he was outstanding. But Dean Rock, in fairness to him, like Paul Ganey, he's opposite number 14 that I put up a tweet about during the week. They worked their socks off. They were all over the pitch. They were out around the middle of the field. They just went to work for their county. So, like, when you put in now, we all talk about Dublin and their efficiency on their subs, and if a guy hits the red markers, he's gone, no matter what he's doing, no matter what he's... And I'm sure Dean Rock would have been close to the red markers after 78 minutes the last day, and it would have been a brave call, but maybe a call that Dublin could regret if they don't win this 5 in a row, because... You know, it was a tired strike from Dean, but he's every right to be tired. It was the 78th minute. He'd absolutely put in an unbelievable shift for Dublin. So maybe the freshness of a more so Costello than Connolly, because I think it was a kick for a guy off the ground. I think it was a kick for a guy off the ground. I think Costello, being fresh, would have slotted that, and Dublin would probably be 5 in a row champions. But look, if you gave it to Costello or Connolly and they missed, they'd be ridiculed. But I'd love to know in the background where he was, as in the markers, how tired he was, what he'd covered. Was he flagging at that stage of the game? Yeah,
so the backroom team will know that, but if he decides he doesn't want to take it, forever he's going to be the player who turned down the chance to win 5 in a row. So
it can never be his call, Ger.
It's a horrible situation to put him, and also, like, the markers are great, but there's also the adrenaline of the situation. It would have been a massive call to take him off.
I know, Ger, but look. You try and make a 10-foot putt. If you run around the golf course and run onto the 18th hole and try and make a 10-foot putt within the next 20 seconds, you're going to be a bit leggy. Your arms are going to be a bit shaky. It's the 78th minute of a game in Croke Park when you did the running. You got to remember, Dean Rock was out contesting kickouts. He was tracking back. He was tackling.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a traditional full forward game where he might have been doing a lot of running out to the 21 or out to the 30 or out that far and back in and like when back in the day when it was great, you scored, you jogged into full forward, you put your hands up and you stayed there until the ball came again. The game is completely different now. Totally. It's probably one of the main reasons that I didn't go again this year was, I couldn't have done the shift that Paul Ganey put in for Kerry the last day. I knew that at the end of last year. I cannot compete with his level of work rate. Paul, like the diving blocks that Paul Ganey did to put off Diarmuid Connolly and Paddy Small have gone unnoticed by a lot of people. But when you look at that game and you see Paul Ganey sprinting flat out and doing full length diving blocks to put off guys that both missed them kicks by fractions, when you say it comes down to inches to win these games, Ger, it comes down to inches. Last topic. Yeah. Last one, Ger. NFL. I know you're excited. I'm excited. NFL Red Zone's back on Sunday. Just for the shot clock listeners, who are you going with this year? Who's your team? Who made the best moves in the off season?
Well, I don't want to be really boring and talk about the New England Patriots, but the Patriots defense is amazing. It's whether or not their attacking prowess is going to be as strong as it was last year. Brady is another year older, and they've no Gronkowski.
We can't keep saying that. It's definitely
going to happen.
It's going to be Tom Brady.
It's definitely going to happen at some point. No Gronkowski, obviously, and their first round pick was a wide receiver who's on injured reserve, so he's going to miss at least the first 8 games of the season in Keele Harry. So I think they're probably gettable. I think that the Kansas City Chiefs, again, it's pretty boring. It's a repeat from last year, but they were absolutely sensational, and another year older for the phenomenal quarterback that they have is going to be very interesting. And of signing Shady McCoy, it looks like he might actually have an impact for them as well. So that's on that side. And then the Philadelphia Eagles are still brilliant from 2 years ago, Super Bowl champions. If Carson Wentz stays fit, they're going to be absolutely amazing.
If he stays healthy, they've got a serious chance because their defense, I think, is one of the best in the league behind the Patriots.
I think I'm going to be a homer here, but the Niners had a great off-season and everybody's fit for the first time with the exception of one of their running backs, but they're okay because they've got cover for him. So I legit think that they have a chance of doing something.
What about my boy Drew Brees?
Yeah.
I know he's another year older.
Exactly.
But, they were robbed last year, Gerald. Let's call a spade a spade. It's the worst no call in the history of the game. So I think they're going to be a bitter, hungry bunch this year. They could be dangerous. They're my outside. They're my tip in a way. I think they're going to push it.
He was no good over the last 5 or 6 weeks of the year. It was definitely. I think he hit the cliff in the middle of last season. A genius coach who might be able to camouflage that. So, I mean,
they might have to mind him better as well. There could be a bit of fatigue and taking hits in that involved. If you're talking about Dean Rock playing a season and playing 78 minutes, when you're Dean Rock and you're getting hit by 300-pound linebackers every day, you're not going to be too happy about it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Kieran, good stuff. Another one's in the books. We'll see you next week.
All right, Joe, before I go.
Yeah.
Tom Crean, the great Tom Crean, #sign for Tom. There's a petition out there to try and get a Navy vessel called after the great Kerryman. My wife is a descendant of Tom Crean.
Wow.
So I'm hoping there's a lot of hope for my 2 small girls. That Tom Crean's bloodline is in there because he was one of the greatest of all time, as in explorers and a mighty man. And if you search #sign for Tom, if any Kerry people are out there, I think we need a boat named after a Navy vessel named after that great man who unbelievably went on these trips in wooden ships back in the day, and what these guys did, himself and Shackleton, was unbelievable. So sign for Tom Crean, get it out there. Thanks, Ger.
I think there's some Thai connection with Tom Crean as well. I think he lived there for a little while, or put together an expedition. So I think the whole country came a little bit, not just Kerry people. Get on #sign for Tom.
Yeah, you're the man. Thanks, Joe.
All right, see you next week. It's Kieran Donaghy. Going to be in studio with us live next Friday. Let's play some Brian O'Driscoll from last night. Here he is in conversation with Johnny Ward. Plenty of topics to get their teeth stuck into. But obviously, one of the things that they were talking about was the Rugby World Cup squad and just the level of scrutiny around Joe Schmidt at the minute.
Just because things, because the pressure is starting to ramp now, we're scrutinising everything, going, he's an extra few lines or marks, or he looks a bit tired, or listen, he's had an emotional period as well the last couple of weeks. He obviously had to head home for passing one of his family members. And then travelling back immediately after that, and that's going
people forget that
that's going to take an enormous toll out of everyone. Think about all the moments that the sorrow that you're having to deal with there alone. So I think what annoys me here is that we labour on the negative now. I'm disappointed for Devin. I'm disappointed for Marmion and for the likes of Jordy Murphy and Addison, but there's a time that you have to park it then and then go, right, here we go. This is our squad. Let's think glass half full.
That's Brian O'Driscoll, a rallying cry last night to everybody to move on from the selection at this stage. And I think, in fairness, with Keane in the studio during the week, and he was making the case that he's actually pretty excited by the squad.
Yeah, I'm definitely more positive having listened to a lot of people talk this week and having realised who's made the decision and how he's made decisions in the past that have tended to be the right calls. Now, you can debate till the cows come home about whether or not Ireland are playing in a fashion that will allow them to win the World Cup, and whether or not they do or not is a discussion for another day. But whether or not Joe Schmidt is the right man to make these calls, he definitely is, and he's made these big calls before and tends to get them right. The thing is, though, we could have Devin Toner in Japan yet. We could have Will Addison in Japan yet. There are going to be injuries. Joe Schmidt knows better than anybody else that there are going to be injuries.
They're not first choice at that point, though. You're making the case that, it's going to be grand because these lads are going to make it at the same time. He was very at pains to point out that the decision was so difficult that there was nothing between Jordy Murphy and whoever ends up actually being that player who gets in, if it's Tyke Byrne, but then Tyke Byrne was actually in instead of Devin Toner. And maybe it's actually one of the centres who makes it in, or one of the replacement wingers and back three players who makes it in ahead of Jordy Murphy. All those conversations are just there to make sure that anybody who does come doesn't feel like somehow they're inferior. And they've got to stay at the level of fitness, and they've got to get some game time into them over the next couple of weeks. So you're right. These players could end up there, but they're not first choice, and we'll know they're not first choice.
Yeah, I think as well there's kind of an effect that once you get bumped off the squad in that fashion, you drop back a little bit. You're so gutted that you can't possibly be in a perfect mindset to come in and whatever it may be in 2 months' time actually play a World Cup quarter-final or sit on the bench for a World Cup quarter-final. That might be an aspect of it as well.
So here's Brian O'Driscoll talking about the big calls Joe Schmidt has made in his Rugby World Cup squad. Have a look.
I'm still surprised, and I'm sure lots of people are still reeling from the likes of Devin Toner not being included instead of John Klein, being omitted because of him. Klein is someone that obviously brings a bit more ballast to any pack that he plays in, but I have to say I remain a little bit unconvinced, not just by his two international performances, and one of them being in Twickenham where he was definitely outplayed by two world-class second rows, but in Munster games and some of the big games, I wouldn't be so cruise to say he's gone missing, but he certainly has been not front and centre as you would hope from one of your enforcer second rows, which I think he's being selected on. So that was a tough selection, obviously for the likes of Devin to take the most capped player under Joe Schmidt.
Well, if you go back to the New Zealand game in November, both he and Marmion are in that team. Now neither goes to the World Cup. What has changed?
And Marmion's the other one, and what's changed? I suppose I think there's two different things there. I think what's changed with Devin Toner is he got injured at the end of last season and he was slow to recover, and I heard something today that there were whispers a month ago that Dev was going to be in trouble because he was finding it difficult to play catch-up.
Yeah, so obviously injury is one of the things that has fed into that. Mike McCarthy is with us this morning. Good morning to you, Mike.
Morning, lads. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. I distinctly remember this time 4 years ago having a pre-Rugby World Cup panel where yourself and Rhys Ruddock were in studio with us, and you both ended up getting game time in the World Cup. So always making the point that it's not a done deal that Devin Toner doesn't make the World Cup. It's not a done deal that Will Allison doesn't make it or Kieran Marmion doesn't make it. But presumably the level of devastation they feel this week is something that takes a long time to recover for him.
Oh yeah, it'll be a massive knockback. I texted Dev the other night and got a response. So I could, just from the text I received from him, I could see how down he was about it. And this is something Dev hasn't really had to deal with in his amazing career. We've heard all the stats: 50 games under Joe Schmidt, 67 caps. 10 years Joe's known him, and I think more than anything it's just a surprise to everyone. I think Joe normally gets quite frustrated with how the media pick up on the teams early on the week for a match, and this is one I think no one saw coming, and it's just more than shock than anything, and it is tough to bounce back. As you said there, I did all the training in 2011 and didn't get on the plane, so that was a tough blow, and then 2015 I wasn't in any of the camp at all and found myself out there, be it for only a week, when Paul O'Connell got injured. So Dev will keep fit, Dev will keep working hard, and he's got a great mindset. He's a really positive bloke. He'll work hard and he'll be match fit should he get called upon.
So 2015, you wouldn't have been, say, first man up. Is that correct, Mike? And then it's just over a period of time, and after things change a little bit, after a few weeks, you end up becoming first man who gets called in?
Yeah, well, Dev will go back to the province and go onto their schedule, their training system, and he'll be fit, he'll be strong, and he'll be ready to go. He'll get over this. It'll be tough watching as it for the likes of Dan Levy in a completely different scenario who's injured and can't be out there. It's incredibly tough, and you can picture what the guys are doing in camp. You can picture everything they're doing, seeing the pictures on social media of them getting on the plane, getting all the gear. It's incredibly tough, but I'm absolutely devastated and definitely didn't see this coming. I don't think Joe's been taking any attention to my depth chart, which firmly had Dev at the very top.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you had Dev at the top in January, and then he was definitely ahead of John Klein and Tyg Byrne when we did the depth chart a couple of weeks ago. Like, I was actually just looking back at that this morning, and when you did the piece with us in January, you did qualify your Devin Toner pick by saying, "I'm the first one to say that Dev is not a power athlete," and it seems that is a very important quote when you look at the reason behind why Joe Schmidt left him out.
Yeah, I was reading something yesterday. I'm not sure if you guys saw it, but it was, how Joe's anticipating a high-tempo game for Japan. In 2015, I think the ball in play was 37 minutes 34, and they're anticipating that 2019, that's going to be 50 minutes. So Joe has picked a team full of dynamism, and mobility is key. And not to say Dev's not mobile, but perhaps that's an area he sees John Klein as having a slight edge. But for me, it's not clear cut. There's not a big enough gap, but if there is a gap, to justify it for me. And my worry is, with a lack of kind of experience of guys calling, James Ryan has called, but he hasn't got much experience. Same with Henderson, he's called, and he's got a bit more experience now, but no one's at the same level of calling the line out as Devin. My worry is, that first game against Scotland, where they've got a clever line out, they'll be leaving traps in defence. They've got a lot of tall timber to get up, in front of jumpers and put pressure on Rory. And the same is if we get to the quarter-final playing South Africa or New Zealand. That's when you need that cool, calm, collected head of Dev that isn't going to get phased by everything. Even if there's a couple of bad calls, a couple of bad throws, Dev just goes back to the process, and you can bank on him getting it right. And the other aspect, which I think maybe hasn't been mentioned, is the extra strain it's going to have on resources, not in a bad way, but probably Hendy. We know how amazing players Hendy, Tyg Byrne, and who've I left out there, James Ryan are, but in camp, Simon Easterby's going to have to kind of babysit those guys a bit more in terms of helping them come up with a plan for the line out, looking at more footage of the opposition. He's going to have to kind of look after them a lot more than where with Dev. Having Dev in camp, he's a leader, he is a coach, so he can completely run that side of the line out. So it's going to have a bit of an impact in terms of resources in those guys needing to be kind of guided through it a little bit more than perhaps with Dev.
Is that a Devin Toner t-shirt over your shoulder?
Oh, yes. Sorry, I've had it on before.
I thought it was just far away. It actually is small.
It's my daughter's one, but Leinster supporters sent me 3 T-shirts, 2 for my daughters and 1 for myself. So I try and get a bit of airtime whenever I can. So yeah.
The thing is, he was injured. That's the problem here, isn't it? Like, you can't go into a World Cup with somebody who's carrying an injury who's not able to do themselves justice.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But when it's a player, someone like Johnny Sexton or Dev Toner, with the amount of credits they've built up, we just spoke about. He's had 50 caps under Joe. He's out of Dev's 67 caps. He's got an incredible amount of credits. He's been part of the legacy which Joe will leave behind and has created. He's been there for beating the All Blacks twice, beating South Africa away from home for the first time, the Triple Crown, the Six Nation wins. He's been there, he's done it all. So it is just more of a shock than anything. And yes, he did come into the camp with an injury, which does put you behind. And it's incredibly tough, not being able to be out there. There's no substitute for running on the pitch, being able to do the running and wrestling on the pitch. And if he's come in slightly behind guys who've been doing that for 2 or 3 weeks, it really does show when you're doing fitness tests and stuff like that, and you're a bit further behind. So, unfortunately, that seems to have cost Dev, and he just didn't get a good run, unfortunately, in those warm-up games to put his best foot forward in terms of selection. But I fully believe he'll be out there. If I made it out there, he's got an even better chance of making it out there. So fingers crossed.
Mike, talk to us a little bit about just how important the whole role of the tight head scrummaging second row actually is, because this has become something that has apparently been a big deal for the Irish management team for the last 18 months and is behind the thinking, so we're led to believe, is behind the thinking of fast-tracking John Klein into the squad.
Yeah, I mean, tight head scrummaging, it is a different level to scrumming on the other side. But for me, I just can't see that as being a reason. Dev is an incredibly good scrummager. He's very heavy. I know from when I was at Leinster, Tig and Mike Ross in particular, they loved having Dev behind him. He adds huge amount of weight and ballast. He's a big man. And, I just can't see there's a big enough difference between him and... I haven't seen John Klein scrummage, so I can't really answer. I know he's a big man as well, but for me, scrummaging for Dev is not a weakness. So I'm not sure if maybe it's kind of more of a physicality aspect, but again, for me, Dev showed that against the All Blacks when he was manhandling Brodie Retallick in 2018. Dev puts his body on the line and he is incredibly physical. But yeah, to answer your question... Scrummaging on the tight head is a lot tougher. It takes a lot more out of your legs. You have to scrummage for 3, 4, 5 seconds longer than everyone else because you just don't want to give anything back in terms of a pushback from the opposition. So you actually keep scrummaging after the ball's gone out the scrum. Then what you find is you come out the scrum and your legs are a lot heavier than anyone else's, particularly the back rows. So you are kind of it's equivalent of doing a fitness test but doing like 10 seconds on the watt bike before you go and do your sprint. So it takes a lot more out of you, and as the game goes further and further along, 50, 60, 70 minutes, that tight head scrummaging, being able to scrummage for 80 minutes, it's a big skill that people don't see or probably understand.
And so if you were designing a rugby team from scratch, you would hope that your line-out caller, if it was going to be somebody in the second row, wouldn't be the tight head scrummager in an ideal scenario.
Yeah, probably in an ideal scenario. Yeah, just because the extra work, the extra fatigue you'll be under scrummaging on the tight head. But Dev just got it all. I was kind of writing a little list of the positive Dev brings. We spoke about like leading the line out in attack, but I mentioned it the last time I was on. These are things people don't see again. Dev 6'11", standing at the tail of the line out in defence. When the opposition are attacking, it forces the opposition to throw the ball to the front of the line out. That means when the 9 passes the ball to 10, it's a longer pass. The ball's in the air for a second longer, which allows your defence to eat up the line speed, get up in their faces. That's a positive ripple effect from an action by Dev that has a positive effect on the rest of the team. The other area is kick-off receipt, kick-off send. He's incredibly good at a short kick-off. You need the ball back. A short kick-off by Johnny. Dev retrieves the ball. That's massive. That is massive in a quarter-final where you're 1 or 2 points behind or ahead, to be able to have that skill to win the ball back. We've spoken about his scrum, and he's got an incredible engine on him. And we spoke about the physicality. He brought that. We saw that against the All Blacks in 2018. But as I heard Drico speaking earlier, I think he said, it's been a shock, but we have to get over it now and get behind the team because it's done. And that's why Joe is one of the best coaches in the world. He's ruthless and he makes big decisions and big calls, which I'm sure 99% of the time come to fruition.
Do you like what you've seen from Tadhg Beirne?
Oh yeah, I think he's an incredible player. Yeah, and for a 30-man squad to have someone who can cover second row and back row, he's an ideal man to have on your bench. When he came on against, I think it was Italy, he got, I think, a couple of poachers in within a couple of minutes, a couple of turnovers. Again, that's massive when you're a point or two behind or ahead for someone to come and do that and totally change the momentum of the game. That's massive. He's great in the line out. He's dynamic. He's a good ball carrier. Hits really clever lines in attack. The only concern for me over Tadhg Beirne was if you're playing a big team, say in the quarter-final, playing South Africa, and he was starting in the second row, is the weight thing. He's not the biggest, and if John Klein's injured or something, would you go with Tadhg Beirne starting the second row against the likes of Diego and Etzebeth? Because the scrum foundation is the key to winning the game.
Like that's the thing, Mike. I was kind of taking the piss out of the whole notion that Devin Toner is tall, therefore he should be in the team yesterday. And I know nobody's kind of saying that on a one-dimensional level. But then kind of thinking about it from both sides of the story, like if you are one of those South African second rows and you know that Devin Toner is on the bench, I mean, there is something about being that tall. There is something about being 6'10" and you see this monster coming off the bench. I'm not talking about Devin Toner starting, but him coming off the bench and adding that to the line out late in a game. There is sort of a psychological thing there that Devin Toner coming on brings rather than John Klein or Tadhg Beirne or whoever the backup second row might be on the bench.
Oh yeah, I can tell you from experience. I've called line-outs, but I wasn't an out-and-out call. I didn't have the analytical brain like Dev would have or Paulie O'Connor would have in terms of being able to create the right calls at the right moment. But I can tell you with the times I did call, if I had Dev Toner coming on, 6'11", who's not only incredibly tall, that physical presence it's a bit scary if he goes to stand at the front of the line out. There's all kind of pressure going through your head, and see Dev coming on, he could cause absolute havoc for the opposition line out, which would obviously be a massive plus, but also it secures your own ball. Your own ball's safe. If you are winning by a point or two, like we said, to have Dev on there, that cool, calm, collected head, doesn't get fazed by anything. That's just what you need in the pressure cooker of Test match rugby when you get to a quarter-final or a semi-final. So he could actually time his run perfectly because hopefully the guys go really well through the pool stages. There's likely to be an injury picked up, and Dev comes in, and it could be perfect timing for him to get there for the quarter-final.
There's a couple of possible teams being named in the newspapers this morning, Mike, when it comes to this weekend's Wales game in Dublin. It talks of a back row in the Irish Independent and in the Irish Times of CJ Stander at 8 and Conan at 6. We've kind of been speaking about Conan versus Stander over the past couple of months, and that probably is the battle. Do you see potentially anything, perhaps maybe midweek, if Stander isn't rested, in this back line where you have the two lads playing together in that back row?
Sorry, if Stander and Conan are playing together?
Yeah, how big a possibility is that?
Oh yeah, I suppose it is a possibility. I mean, what that gives you is incredible ball carrying power, and I think maybe we found, while we've been on a massive high with everything that's been achieved and winning the Triple Crown, the last Six Nations, that game to England where we got physically dominated, the Wales game at the Millennium Stadium. Physicality has been called into question. We were unable to really get over the gain line, and that's what we've been great at in the past is chipping away, like Sir James Ryan, running into heavy traffic, winning those inches, winning the momentum, winning the gain line, and maybe that's what we lacked a bit in the Six Nations. Keeping hold of the ball and winning those inches, and to have Conan and CJ Stander, who is two very different but great players in terms of getting you over the gain line, offering themselves up, great engines on them. To have them both playing together could have a massive influence on the Irish attack. As I say, if you continually keep getting, even if it's inch by inch, getting over the gain line, that's just making the defence have to work harder. They have to, instead of running across to get around the ruck to set their positions in defence, they have to run back and around, which takes a couple of extra seconds, and it could have a massive knock-on effect for the lads. So Jack Conan's form over last season, and even when he's had the opportunity, has been absolutely incredible. So he really is knocking on the door, and I don't think we've seen the same. Well, we haven't seen the same CJ Stander, which we know the level he can play at. So I mean, it would be great to see them both playing on Saturday, and I think we're definitely going to see two full-strength teams. And I even heard that it's likely these warm-up games that the coaches would have actually spoken to kind of tee up to make sure they are going full strength to full strength, as opposed to last week where it was Wales's second team. And we can get a real gauge as to where we are actually at after those 4 games.
Yeah, and particularly, I don't know if we get a gauge after this weekend, because obviously it's the first chance that we're going to have to see a bunch of players who haven't played any rugby in the pre-season for us. So it'll be our first look at Earls, Henshaw and Johnny Sexton in particular. Is it possible that we can play badly this weekend and still have a good World Cup?
Well, I definitely think so, yeah. I definitely think so. But those players you named are players that historically have been able to come back from long-term injury, the likes of Robbie Henshaw with that shoulder. Johnny Sexton's done it all through his career, come back from having had no game time, even sometimes not have been able to be on his feet training-wise, and they've just hit the ground running. So I haven't got any fear about that. Obviously, going into World Cup, you hope they do get a few miles on the clock going into that. But I think we can have an abysmal, even if we were to lose Aviva, I know that mentally Joe will be able to get the lads up ready for the World Cup. But also, again, I was here listening to Drico speak, and I completely agree with, Joe will have plays from 3 or 4 years ago, which we haven't seen, impossible to analyse for opposition, that will be used, which will catch teams on the hop, completely catch teams cold, and those plays completely change the momentum of the game. They put the team on a massive high, and they kick on from there and play really well. So yeah, I think we obviously need to hit the ground running with that Scotland game, but I definitely can see us having a good World Cup.
Because the margin for improvement in the space of 1 week is clearly something that is possible. I know you're not comparing like with like, comparing that England team to that Wales team that we played, but in terms of missed tackles, the count was way down. I think the tackle success rate was up to somewhere like 92% after being at 67% against England. So clearly Andy Farrell had done something in the interim. Jacob Stockdale spoke about how he sat down with him and went through all the little moments where he made errors, and there's clearly improvements to be made in a short period of time here, and we do still have outstanding coaches who can make that happen.
Yeah. I mean, there was an improvement, but I think you've got to remember, that England team with the likes of, if that England team with Mako Vunipola, I know he was just back from injury then, Itoje, Billy Vunipola, Tuolangi, Eoin Farrell, that's pretty much as strong as England can get at Twickenham. They played 2 games against Wales. They were match hardened. We came to that game, we weren't match hardened. Guys hadn't played together. So while it, obviously it was incredibly disappointing to get, a hammering like that, we'll only go up and improve from there. But, there was definitely improvements against Wales. But you have to remember we're playing Wales' second team. And, it's a lot of going to the World Cup for some players is a lot to do with luck. So, I look at Jack Carty and Ross Byrne, and I really feel sorry for Ross Byrne, because nothing against Jack Carty. Jack Carty's a phenomenal player. He's been backing up performance week in, week out last season. He played really well, obviously, against Wales, getting man of the match. But so Ross, if they're on an even par for the World Cup pre-season, and then Ross Byrne gets his chance against England at Twickenham against, a team that's probably one of the favourites to win the World Cup, and he's on the back foot for the whole game. It's unfortunate for him. I know which game as a fly-half I would have rather started. Wales away at the Millennium Stadium against their second team, as opposed to England's first team at Twickenham. So, there is a fair bit of luck in terms of, whether you get yourself on the plane and how things kind of play out.
How confident or otherwise are you about what sort of a World Cup we're going to have at the moment? Given that we came off the shellacking from the England game, we had a slight uptick in performance against Wales, although a slightly dodgy final 20 minutes, again with against the Wales B team. It'll be very interesting to see how our A team performs this weekend, and then there's a week off, and then there's the start of the World Cup. So, are you glass half full, or are you, that glass seems to have sprung a leak?
Oh, obviously, I'm definitely a glass half full, but there's obviously been a concern, over the Six Nations with England and Wales performance, where we never have normally lacked physically, and we did lack physically there. But to be honest, if we'd gone into the World Cup having won every game, I think that would have been more dangerous. So this gives us a chance to sharpen the minds. I fully expect. I think we're going to have a really good performance against Wales. When you're getting that criticism and the guys see it in the papers and they hear it and they hear the noise and it's your back's against the wall, and it gets to a point where there's a turning point, and I can just see a lot of kind of anger and frustration over how some of the games have gone. I can just see that coming out and having a brilliant performance on Saturday against Wales. So I'm really optimistic. You look at the squad and the power and the dynamism in that squad. It is an incredible squad packed full of machines, athletes, and it's really exciting. So fingers crossed, a good performance against Wales, and then we hit the ground running going into the World Cup.
Mike, thanks a million for joining us this morning.
Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
It's Mike McCarthy there giving us his thoughts ahead of the World Cup, and on obviously the big selection of Devin Toner not making the Ireland squad. Obviously a very appropriate guest to talk to, somebody who's played with Devin Toner and somebody who didn't make a World Cup squad but who ultimately ends up out in a World Cup for Ireland. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to be back with Phil Egan this morning. If you want to get in touch with us, use the hashtag OTBAM.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Join Bruce Betting now for a risk-free first bet up to €100. That's right. New Irish accounts can enjoy a risk-free first bet up to €100. So if your first bet loses, we'll refund your stake with a free bet. Now that's giving you more. Bruce Betting. In store, online, and now on your phone. T's and C's apply. Please gamble responsibly. See Dunlewy.net.
The 2019 Boyle Sports World Grand Prix Darts is back at the City West Convention Centre, Dublin, from the 6th to the 12th of October. See 32 of the biggest darting stars on the planet, including world number 1 Michael van Gerwen, former Grand Prix champion Darrell Gurney, plus fan favourite Peter Wright. Get your tickets now at ticketmaster.ie and search darts. The 2019 Boyle Sports World Grand Prix Darts at City West. Game on.
OTB AM.
Yeah, listen, you can look at it a couple of ways. Toner's going to have, Klein is going to have all his Munster teammates, in the national squad that are delighted to have him there because, he's soldiers with them week in, week out. But I suppose likewise, the Leinster boys and some of the other international guys that have played and soldiered with Devin for a long time are going to be disappointed at his omission. But that's the reality of every selection process, that there's some guys are delighted with new guy picked and some guys disappointed that the old guard is gone. And I think we can get, I'm a bit conflicted by it because I can understand people's annoyance at a South African player coming over and 2 days before his 3 years, or 2 days after his 3 years residency comes to fruition, he gets capped, versus a guy that has been capped most times by Joe Schmidt and in his role as Ireland coach. I can understand people, but for me, that's gone. The World Rugby have tried to put that right. We still have some pain to live over the course of the next 2 years until those 5 years come or pass, and then we can all move on with it.
Yeah, all right. That's Brian Driscoll's thoughts on the residency rule. More of that good stuff available for you wherever you get your podcasts. You can get it on youtube.com/offtheball or the Go Loud app. It's 23 minutes past 9 this morning. Phil is here. Phil, how are you?
Very well, lads. Yeah, looking forward to tonight's qualifier between the Republic of Ireland and Switzerland at the Aviva Stadium. Ireland in a good position. Win this and you can start dreaming.
Yeah, but we have money, Phil.
Yeah, I know.
You can go to exotic places like Dublin.
Yeah. But wouldn't it be great to watch a Euro 2020 game in Dublin? Unbelievable.
It would be the greatest atmosphere that's ever happened in an Irish sports event ever. A home game in the Euros.
Yeah, let's hope the right people get the tickets.
Tickets are already distributed.
They've already gone, haven't they?
I presume you applied for yours.
I think I haven't. They've already gone, haven't they?
Well, if the right people don't get...
But you can redistribute them and stuff.
Yeah, they'll certainly make a point about it on Twitter anyway if they don't get the tickets for the game.
Don't be giving them to any American vloggers.
No.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ireland, 10 points from 12 games, or from 12 after 4 games. The Swiss have 4 points from 2 games, but because they were in the Nations League, they have a couple of games in hand. But, you're looking at this, and if we were to beat them, we kind of almost put them under, like they're in a position where they can't slip up. If we draw, which is the most probable result, the 1-1 draw is usually a safe bet when it comes to an Ireland home game against anybody opposition.
Yeah.
But then you're putting yourself in a position where you still have Denmark to come, but you've got trips to Georgia and Switzerland.
I don't think we can. I think you've got to win your home games in a group like this.
And we've never really done it.
No. Well, we beat Germany that time. Who scored the goal that day? Oh, somebody can make the squad now.
And it was. I can remember the World Cup qualifying campaign where we had just won away in Austria, and then we looked at the fixtures for the second half of the campaign, and it was all these home games, and we thought we're quids in here. We're going to do this because we've got all these home games. We've got to play Austria at home. We've got to play Serbia at home. We'll do this, and we needed a late goal to get a draw against Austria. We lost to Serbia, so we don't win enough of these home games. But if we're going to score goals, we've only scored 5 goals in the campaign so far. So Mick McCarthy was asked about this,
including a game against Gibraltar.
Yeah, and that's 2 games, by the way. So we scored 3 goals against Gibraltar. And Mick McCarthy was asked about this, and the importance of set pieces, he said, is key.
It's a real plus for us. We've got good deliveries, certainly. Judgy put a great delivery in for Big Duffer. Connor scored with his goal, puts fabulous deliveries in with his left foot. We've got people who are going to attack it. You've got to have good movement in the box. And we can be a threat from free kicks and corners, of course.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to go with the same starting 11 that beat Gibraltar, unless Callum Robinson doesn't come through. He sat out training yesterday.
Yeah, they said yesterday no problems, but that's always a...
Yeah, tightness of the thigh muscle.
Yeah,
so
it's always an issue, isn't it?
Yeah, which would be a real disappointment because he's been pretty good for Sheffield United. He scored, obviously, at Stamford Bridge at the weekend. Now, if he doesn't play, then you're looking at somebody like Callum O'Dowda, who I actually like the thoughts of playing on the right, to be able to cut in and free up space for Seamus Coleman down that right-hand side. But we'll find out before kick-off what the team is. That game, by the way, gets underway at 7:45. The other game in our group is Gibraltar and Denmark, also a 7:45 start. Northern Ireland have a home friendly against Luxembourg, and that one also underway at 7:45. Aston Villa defender Tyrone Mings could make his debut for England in the next few days. Gareth Southgate, his side play Bulgaria at Wembley on Saturday, then they play Kosovo on Tuesday at St Mary's. There's a bit of significance there because obviously it's the home of Southampton. Mings was rejected as a youth player at Southampton many, many years ago before he worked as a mortgage advisor, and he talks about how he certainly didn't think that he'd be in line to make his debut for England when he was cold calling people.
I can't say that whilst I was sat on my desk cold calling or trying to help people remortgage that playing for England was a real achievable goal. No, it makes it all the more sweeter being sat here right now.
You were rejected, I think, by Southampton as well for being too small as a youth player coming through. Is that right?
It is right, yeah.
How tall are you now?
I'm 6'5".
Good call, Southampton.
Yeah, I saw him playing for Ipswich when Mick McCarthy was in charge, and he was so impressive. He played as a left back, but he was the best player on the pitch, and that was when the season Ipswich got to the playoffs. Daryl Murphy was banging in all the goals, but he could have played in midfield. He was that good, and you kind of thought, why is he playing left back when now he's obviously playing as a centre half? But he's been very good. You know yourself as a villain.
So Mick played him out of position. Is that what you're saying? Mick didn't spot
He was young, so he was probably just.
He was young. He was 24.
Don't want to throw him in midfield, maybe in the Championship where he mightn't get that much time on the ball, but he's certainly turned into a very good defender. Johnny Sexton, Conor Murray and Keith Earls are all set to return to the Ireland team when it's named this afternoon ahead of Saturday's final Rugby World Cup warm-up game against Wales at the Aviva Stadium. That team due to be named just before 2 o'clock. Rafa Nadal's into the semi-finals of the US Open in New York after a straight sets win over Diego Schwartzman. The three-time champion at Flushing Meadows will meet Matteo Berrettini, who beat Gael Monfils in a 5-set thriller. Canadian teenager Bianca Andreescu is into the women's semi-finals after seeing off Elise Mertens, and Andreescu will play Belinda Bencic. On 3 under par, Sweden's Joachim Lagergren and England's Ben Stowe are the early leaders on day one of the European Open in Hamburg. Cormac Sharvan's 1 over, Michael Hoey is 4 over. Pádraig Harrington and Gavin Moynihan will tee off at lunchtime. Australia will resume on 170 for 3 on day 2 of the 4th Ashes test against England at Old Trafford. Steve Smith unbeaten on 60 at the moment, and play due to resume at 11 o'clock.
Yeah, putting up a big score there at the minute as things stand. Right, we've been running a fantastic competition all this week with thanks to Dove Men Plus Care, the official partner of Irish Rugby. As Ireland prepare for their final Guinness Series clash against Wales in the Aviva this weekend, we're giving you and a friend the chance to be part of the captain's run. The winner will join the RFU kitman John Moran as he prepares the dressing room for the Irish Rugby team ahead of their final training session before the big game, which is obviously tomorrow. They'll also win a pair of tickets to see Ireland take on Wales at the Aviva Stadium the following day on Saturday. Congratulations to Thomas Tennyson, who answered all 3 questions this week. Who played at number 10 for Ireland against Wales? Jack Carty. Who scored Ireland's first try against Wales? Jacob Stockdale. And then when we asked which Irish rugby player Thomas would bring to the Rugby World Cup if he could bring anyone, he said Brian O'Driscoll, which was the correct answer also. It's all with thanks to Dove Men Plus Care. Enjoy your weekend, Thomas. I'm sure it's going to be great. Everybody who suggested anybody that you could bring to the Rugby World Cup, we put in the draw. It wasn't just...
Anyone say Devin Toner?
No one said Dev, I don't think. Did they? Did a few people say Dev? I think so. All right, the reaction to last night's Off the Ball Cadbury's Roadshow with Roy Keane and Gary Neville will be released across offtheball.com throughout the day. Stay tuned for that. The full show is going to be on our YouTube channel a little bit later on as well, so make sure you subscribe to that, and as soon as it goes up there, you'll be able to check out the full thing. Full live, uninterrupted commentary tonight of Ireland against Switzerland on the radio with Nathan Murphy and David Myler from 7 o'clock. And then tomorrow, Stephen Kelly, Stephen Hunt and Alan Quinlan live from 7:30. It's going to be a big show. It's going to be a big few days for us here at Off the Ball. Get on to Go Loud, which is our shiny new app. You can download it at the Play Store, or you can also get it wherever you get apps from Apple. The App Store in Apple, is that what it's called?
Yes, correct.
Goddamn Apple with their fancy names. And download Go Loud, get on to OTB Sports Radio and get tuned. See you tomorrow. Good luck.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.